last year, and we expect it to grow. So in that application, we have more officer support this year. So I wanted to introduce our teachers to know what we're doing as Footprints Fitness. We're continuing to grow. We're continuing to meet with the board, the school board, and getting into all the schools to carry on our mission and to do that. And one of the schools that we're at right now is Hardy, and working with the special needs students. And we're going to be working with the special needs in the high schools and in the middle schools. So this race supports all those programs. So we hope you approve it. If you have any questions.
Okay, Chief, any comments?
Police Department has reviewed the route, and we are in support. Ms. Wright has agreed to pay the required police overtime, so I would recommend approval of the requested road closures.
Thank you. Any further discussions? Motion, Joe?
Yeah, well, I make a
Comment.
motion.
Go ahead.
Comment. Can you repeat the time again that you're looking?
It's at noon on April 23rd.
Okay,
Saturday.
excellent. I just want to give a plug for the people that watch this on TV, because I think, and sorry, I'm getting a little bit tangent, but no, I think our community needs more of these events. I mean, if you could have, big task, but if you could have three of these a year, that would be terrific, because there's
We were very surprised at the turnout. Like, we kind of, when we planned it, maybe 100 people, but I seriously had to turn people away. I'm like, I am out of T-shirts, I'm out of everything, and it really was exactly what the community was looking for. To be clear, it's parents participating with their children. It has 3 meanings: the pint size for children, it's a small marathon, and then we partner with Witch's Hat that the adults get a beer. So it's community support, and we do plan on growing this race more coming forward. So we're looking forward to this year again.
Yeah, it's a great organization. So I just, if for next suggestion would be if you can have more, that'd be great. Thank you. And I was going to make the motion, but I'll wait for
Mary.
I think this is absolutely fantastic, and I'm on board 100%, same as Joe. I did want to make a quick comment, though. I was reading the actual waiver, and there's a few spelling errors. Halfway through, it says, I assume all risk associated with running in this event, including but no limited to. I believe that should be not limited to. And then also the second line down, having read this waiver and knowing these facts and in consideration, I think in consideration would be 2 words, because in consideration is like you're inconsiderate. It's
Okay.
one, like that's one meeting. If you
consideration.
separate it, I believe it's a separate meeting. But double check, because I could be wrong, but not limited to and in consideration. So, but aside from that, this looks awesome and good work. Keep it up.
Anyone else?
Well, I just want to point out, it's actually the road closures from 11 to 2, so
Okay.
that's the important thing for us, so. Did you want to do that, Joe?
Yeah, sure. I will make the motion to approve the road closure for the pint-sized marathon.
Can I add one more thing? Last year, they gave us all of McCaddy Park in the motion for the use of that during the park, because we do run through the park on the way back through.
Yeah, Lynn, do you know if we have any other events on that day, or is that going to be an issue, or?
I don't, without looking at the spring SLARA calendar, I can't confirm, but I don't believe there's anything else, because I know they're helping to
Baseball season.
facilitate this as well.
It's early in
They're
the year.
advertising it.
Yeah, well, me personally, I don't have any issues, but it's up to the council as a board. I mean,
Well, what do you mean, the whole McCaddy
The
Park?
way that it was worded last year is to give us the road closures and then full use of McCaddy for the hours of the race.
If someone's got an event, like a family reunion or something, could you accept them to be in the same park?
The way that it worked out last year, there were some softball practices and stuff earlier in the day, but they stopped before it. But we do run right through the park, so if there are any events, they should be discouraged from that time period.
Well, I mean,
Well-
it's in your best interest to contact SLARA and let them know that 11 to 2, that you guys want the park. You know what I'm talking about? SLARA, the.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that last year, the way that it was worded.
Well, you don't know what their schedule is, so why can't you call
Well,
them?
yeah, I'm just concerned about what happens if somebody wants to go use the playground equipment. Are we saying you can't for the hours 11 to 2, or is it just?
No. I'm not suggesting that you guys do anything differently. I'm just saying that last year, the wording did include that to have the road closures, and I don't know why it had that. That was the wording that you presented to us. But we didn't have any issues last year.
Yeah.
No problem with it, just go with it the way it
yeah,
is.
I'm sure if families are planning on the picnic I'm sorry, the play area in that isn't gonna affect that whatsoever.
Yeah, I've seen that the library has their runs, as you know, through there, and I've been in there at the same time. It hasn't been
Yeah,
an
there's
issue.
a bike path that comes through there.
Yeah, if you see the way the motion is written on the agenda note, the last sentence or the last part of it says, "And to approve the use of the Witches Hat Depot, McCaddy Park, and rail trails for the pint-sized marathon."
Yep.
So I think that's what she's
Yeah, so
essentially
as
asking
it's,
for.
as it's stated, so I'll have to,
All right, are you done with your motion?
yeah, I am.
All right, is there a second to that motion?
Second.
All right, motion by Rizzi, seconded by Dudakis. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Acceptance of the Risk Avoidance Program RAP grant. Is that the money that we
Apparently-
already received, or is that something different?
This is something we've already received.
Okay, go ahead, Chief.
Yeah, this is something different, but unfortunately, Mr. McClory isn't here. We could add $347.50 to the almost $70,000 total that he talked about. But this particular RAP grant was applied for by the police department. It was half of the cost of sending an officer to field training officer school. So in the event that we would hire any new officers at some time in the future, we would have somebody qualified as a field training officer to properly train him.
Perfect. Motion to accept the grant. There's no further discussion.
I make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
Motion by Kibble, supported by Kramer, to accept the grant from MIRMA for $347.50. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, now we have discussion and consideration of hiring special counsel for the purpose of addressing unsafe structures and blight. And I think this is Maggie's item, is it not?
Yes.
Thank you. As a business lawyer, I counsel my clients to make change to improve a decisional process, to achieve a more desirable result, sometimes to align personnel with the goals and objectives of the organization. I don't recommend change just for the sake of change. I always support my positions for change with reasons for why things can be better. I am supporting the hiring of the Paul Burns Law Firm for blight busting and code enforcement, not because it is a change in the legal services provided by Johnson Rosati, but rather it is supported by some of the most important reasons for change, and that is credentials, qualifications, and track record. At this time in the city's economic state with respect to the downtown area, I believe that the Paul Burns Law Firm has the credentials, has the qualifications, and the track record to assist us in this effort, quite frankly, in righting this ship. I support my decision to retain the services of the Paul Burns Law Firm based on my prior experience with Johnson Rosati on the Planning Commission and on their lack of real estate knowledge as to the dedication of the utilities at Colonial Acres Phase 5. As to the Planning Commission, for example, I had to tell the city attorney to go to the city ordinances in order to determine the length of time that a site plan was in effect. This is pretty basic stuff. In fact, our discussion was quite heated over the phone, and it only settled down when Johnson Rosati realized that I was correct. Next, as to the dedication of the utilities as to Phase 5, I wrote a letter to City Council. I put on the mayor, I sent it to Johnson Rosati, and I put my list of concerns regarding issues with the city attorney's comprehension of corporate and real estate matters. The letter's here if anybody wants to review it. More recent examples of Johnson Rosati's legal services with respect to real estate dates back to only a month ago when I learned that Johnson Rosati negotiated away a requirement for a performance bond as to a developer's responsibility for completion of roads, water supply system, sanitary system, and storm water retention system in Knowles to South Lyon. Although one council member stated that this was a risk the city was willing to assume, it was extremely a risky business decision that not too many real estate attorneys would have recommended to their client to ever approve. However, this risky business decision for the city is not the end of the story. If Knowles of South Lyon goes under, and there just may be some percolating going on down there, the developer becomes unable to construct the infrastructure for that project, the homeowners at Eagle Heights are now going to be saddled with the burden of the city's decision to waive the performance bond. Eagle Heights property owners will see a reduction in their real estate values in the short run, if that project goes under and does not get completed for a period of time. The city can make all the risky business decisions it wants, but to remove that performance bond as a requirement for that development, for the infrastructure, and potentially jeopardize the real estate values of those homeowners over at Eagle Heights, now the decision becomes reckless. I cannot support Johnson Rosati for real estate matters, and I believe the better qualified law firm for the downtown and surrounding area is the Paul Burns Law Firm. Next, an argument has been made that the Paul Burns Law Firm, when they presented their PowerPoint presentation, which outlined the process of dealing with blight and code, really wasn't much but rocket science. There wasn't much to it. As some taxpayers in Trotters Point Carriage Trace told me over the Christmas vacation, anyone who thinks dealing in real estate is not rocket science, let me see your credentials. Let me see your credentials. First, anyone who works in real estate knows you better know what you are doing, because dealing with real estate takes a lot of experience and a lot of credentials. Real estate is not exact, and there is very little room for error. Second, dealing in real estate, it must be rocket science, because this city hasn't been able to figure out how to deal with the blight in the downtown area. So there must be some rocket science involved in it, because no one's been able to figure it out. Even though some members of City Council believe that this is a simple process of cleaning up the downtown, you are naive. This is tough work, and you really know how to handle these types of cases. I'm not saying that Johnson Rosati is not a good city attorney. They are probably good at most legal matters related to municipal governance, like insurance defense. But to me, real estate is not their apparent specialty. I don't accept personal injury cases because I don't know anything about personal injury. In fact, as much real estate as I do, there are areas of real estate I do not practice in. I do what I'm qualified and experienced to do, and I do nothing more. Johnson Rosati wants billable hours, which is different from being qualified to do the billing. Next, the cost of retaining the Paul Burns Law Firm is about $3 more an hour than the present billing of Johnson Rosati. Correct me if I'm wrong, and I will stand to be corrected, but I calculated out that Johnson Rosati is billing approximately $147 an hour, and the Paul Burns Law Firm provided a quote for $150 an hour. For a $3 increase in the billable rate, this city is actually retaining the service of someone qualified to do the job. The residents in this city and the business owners in the surrounding communities are looking tonight to this city council for leadership and starting to basically raise the Titanic. I can only tell you the elected governmental officials that I have spoken to that are in Green Oak, that are in Salem, that are in Lyon Township. They all know what's being voted on tonight. And as I said a month ago, that downtown is a regional issue. It does not belong to us. Everybody in the region wants to see that downtown fixed. People in Lyon Township want to see it fixed. Salem, they want to see it fixed. Green Oak, everybody wants that downtown fixed. Leadership is about making changes for the better, despite your political oppositions. I am supporting the law firm that has a track record for success in solving this problem with our downtown real estate. The bottom line, the problem with the downtown has been in the making for decades. Over those decades, basically, the same type of people have been running the city. They are unfocused, they refuse to move forward, they reject progress, and they relish in their years of the past. That brand of management and political governance on city council has resulted basically in almost an economic collapse of the downtown. This city's policies are mostly to blame for the decades of deterioration in that downtown. You can't blame it on the economy. Many towns downriver survived the Great Depression. They also survived the Great Recession. They're surviving. It isn't just about the economy. Collectively, we cannot solve this problem. However, collectively, we can be part of the solution by starting to retain the services of the experts to help us on our way. It is not so much about change. It is about reaching out to the experts and saying, we need help. I'm voting to retain the Paul Burns Law Firm to assist us in our blight and code enforcement issues in the city for only the next 18 months. Tonight, this city council has a choice to send to everybody who is going to learn about this as soon as we leave tonight. You have an opportunity to send a message of hope, a message of leadership to the residents of South Lyon and to the surrounding communities. I'm saying start tonight, make the change, let's get going, and let's hire this firm and get it in here now. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I was, in anticipation of this discussion, I was asking Tim to be able to provide, if I'm not mistaken, he suggested that the next meeting will have the blight ordinance as well as the dangerous buildings. What's the other one? There's essentially the first reading on two ordinances.
International Property Maintenance Code.
Yes, right, property maintenance code. So we're in the final throes of actually arming ourselves with the instruments that Burns is going to end up being able to provide us. So I just don't really see what the point of making that transition is.
I have a comment.
Take your call?
No,
Okay, go ahead, Joe.
it was on vibrate, by the way. I'm not a legal expert. I don't claim to be. I've said that before. But what I do know is what I see and what I hear from the residents of South Lyon. And what I saw, I think I'm kind of in a unique situation because we're in a place right now where you can say we have a new city council with 3 new elected. Of course, I was on the previous regime and now I'm here today. But what I've seen was a mishandling by the Johnson Rosati law firm on Colonial Acres Phase 5. The way that was handled was not very professional. And then what I see, and then I kind of, go through this through city council and I see all of our daily workings. And then another issue comes up just a month ago about this SLARA contract that had all these issues with it. And you could speak of all the qualifications of Johnson Rosati, but, sometimes your gut just tells you. And my gut is telling me that I'm not comfortable with the way we've been doing things. I mean, as I mentioned, we had a previous regime that was all for hand-picked Johnson Rosati law firm.
Which you were a part of, but go ahead.
I'm sorry, I don't interrupt you. I have the floor.
Thank you, Mom.
Which, by the way, I voted against. I'll get into that, but never mind. When we talk about the invoices, I'll talk about how I voted against that, which I was part of, the only one who voted against that, but that's a side note. But anyhow, back to my discussion before I was rudely interrupted. We had a regime that handpicked this Johnson Rosati law firm, and now we need to move forward, not backwards. So we have a critical vote tonight. We can say we're going to continue on the same path, which may get us a few improvements Okay, I'm gonna give you that. Maybe a few. We'll have a new ordinance. Some of the codes changed. But is it going to be the best we can do it? I don't think so. We've seen results in Brighton. We don't have to become Brighton, but we can use the skills that they used, and virtually for the same price. So I'm going to go with my gut, and that tells me I want to go with the proven experts who have done this in another community, who know what they're doing. It's like you don't hire a general practitioner to do brain surgery. It's just, you don't do it. You hire the experts. So I'm moving forward. I want to be part of this new council, so I'm going to be supporting the Paul Burns Law Firm. Thank you.
Go ahead.
When we hired the Johnson Rosati Law Firm, we did it by a RFP. An RFP was a request for proposals of numerous law firms. We conducted interviews with these law firms. We did not have private meetings with a law firm and ask them to come here to solicit work from the city. That is exactly what happened in this case. You talk about transparency in government, you're a hypocrite. You meet with them privately without the council present, you have this long discussion with them, and then you invite them here to give a one-day presentation about blight control. Yet you believe in open government. When we hired the Johnson Rosati Law Firm, that was open government. We did it by the book. We request for proposals, we did interviews. None of that has been done in this case. We don't know anyone's relationship with this law firm, other than the fact somebody met with the law firm, discussed it, and brought them in. Do you call that open government? Do you call them conducting interviews or doing RFPs to see if there's other law firms that can do this? We hired the Johnson Rosati Law Firm because it was a law firm. It was a large law firm. It offered many different services for our community. We went away from a single person or a two-person shop to a law firm. We have a city attorney. We have not asked the city attorney to do any of this stuff. Talking about the circles we were doing for the last 6 years, going around in circles, we have not given our city attorney direction on what we want to do because we've been all over the place. You talk about strategic planning. Let's do that. Let's all get on the same page, and let's get our city attorney with us on that page. The fact that we have to bring in another law firm that we know nothing about, other than one presentation, and say they are the saviors that are going to save downtown is ridiculous. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Harvey.
Glenn?
What we do know about Burns is that they were successful in prosecuting a kind of a bad landlord that's in our backyard. But what we also know is that we've been specifically telling our law firm, monitor this carefully. We want to emulate everything that's going on to be able to achieve the same success that's been conducted in Brighton. That's where we're at right now, at the brink of finding or getting the language for those ordinances that had successfully handled the biggest malcontent landlord that we've got in our downtown. To duplicate that effort with another firm just seems ridiculous to me.
Mr. Member.
Go ahead. Mary,
I do have a quick comment. So I reviewed the credentials of our current law firm, and as impressive as they are, I'm not sold that they can walk the walk like Brighton can. And with that being said, I'm a little disappointed that Johnson Rosati hasn't come to us. I know that it lacked direction on our part, that we didn't give them direction to, hey, give us some strategy, give us a strategic framework for what you propose should go on with our downtown area. I'm just disappointed that they haven't done the same thing that Brighton has done and pitched their thoughts and ideas to us, because I would be a little bit more apt to vote in favor of someone we already hired if I knew what they were thinking and knew what they wanted to do with our city. Granted, again, I understand what Mike is saying with direction. That's on our bad. They lack direction. However, I think that there's no better expert right now than Brighton. So unless Johnson Rosati can come forward and say, hey, listen, this is the turnaround time. It's going to be 18 months as well, or 15 months, and this is going to be our cost, and this is how we're going to do it. I haven't seen any of that. None of us have. So our hands are kind of tied. What are we working with right now? That's all I've got.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, Tim, for an
In
opportunity.
fact, I'd like to make 3 points. First off, Paul Burns, I do know him. I know Brad Maines. They are good attorneys. So if it's a decision between hiring them and having us do the work, that's the council's decision. The second point is our firm is qualified. I've tried to provide through a limited fashion some examples of specific successes our firm has had with respect to ordinance enforcement and the dangerous building process. I have some experience personally with that, and I think we are very qualified. We are capable of doing that work. We have not come out and set a vision, and I can explain that to you. I think there's been quite some turmoil since 2013, and it's been difficult to identify the highest priorities for the city and move them forward. The third point I think I need to make is to respond to the criticism of both my performance and my partner's performance. And as to a site plan issue, we always look to the ordinances. That issue was resolved, and it worked out. We were able to move forward with the issue. As to the Knolls, this was an issue where the developer asked for this particular concession. The city was advised about the impact of that concession and not requiring a financial guarantee. The security or the provision that we put into that plan development agreement was to require the completion and final approval of all those underground utilities before any building permits were issued. What that does is it says there is nothing vertical going into this property without the utilities being completed. There's no chance of a half-done subdivision occurring. And that was presented to council, it was put into the plan development agreement, and it was approved. This developer made representations that that's been done in other communities. I have heard of that being done in other communities, and given the economy, that was the decision that was made. So, as to the Colonial Acres, this was a position where the city was being asked to accept utility pipes and infrastructure put in the ground approximately 30 years ago. And it was an unusual arrangement with a developer leasing land to the individual residents, which look like individual homes. And the only concern that I had was looking out for the city's best interest, making sure that we had the appropriate documentation so that we could accept the dedication, and to make sure that we had all the information that we were required to have before accepting the financial obligation and accepting those infrastructure improvements. And as to the billable hour rate, I'm not sure where Councilmember Kurzweil comes up with $147 per hour. My firm bills at $112 per hour for the first 80 hours, and it's $135 after that. There are outside retainer services which may affect the hourly rate overall, but those are at $135, and labor would be the highest at $160 or $165. I forget exactly which one that is. So, in all, while I certainly understand council's prerogative to want to explore, and this is not an unusual circumstance where you might bring another law firm in to handle something specific, I do think my firm and myself are both qualified to do this work. And, I think the criticisms of my performance and my partner's performance are unwarranted in this circumstance. They do not relate to dangerous buildings, and I think there's an explanation about every one of those issues.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Go ahead, Joe.
So I think this is real simple. I mean, we could talk about this in circles, but really what it comes down to is you have a firm, Johnson Rosati. I like them. They're good people, but are they real estate experts? They say they are, but, everybody is going to say they have a great resume, So you have one firm that I would say is doing a good job of what they're doing, and then we have another firm who's dealt with the same slumlord as I call, that we have in South Lyon, took them all the way up to the Supreme Court and won. I want the winners on my side with a proven track record. I don't want to have to replicate what the winners did. I want to choose the winners. And you talk about the billable hours, okay, 165, 130, it's all expensive to me. I mean, what it sounds to me is it's going to come out to be pretty much the same, either way you cut it. So if that's going to be the case, I want the best. And again, it comes down to, are we willing to move forward and try something different? Because it hasn't been working for us. I can tell you that. How we've been doing things is keeping the same people, doing the same things the same way and saying, oh, well, you know, we're just going to do things the same way. It's not working. And people want change. So that's why I stick to what I said. When it comes to the vote, I'm going to be voting for the guys who have a proven record.
I have a quick comment.
Go ahead.
Is it possible, Mike, to throw out the idea that if we table this and try to research other real estate experts and other attorneys who are experts in this field and bring them to the table and have an open, open interview session where everybody can get involved so it's not a private discussion? Because I commend you, Councilwoman Kurtzwell, for going and finding these fantastic attorneys. But for the sake of transparency, would it be a thought to maybe bring in other people, research other firms, including Johnson Rosati, have just an open interview session or night or something along those lines? So that way it doesn't feel as though there's any kind of impropriety? Just a thought? No?
Okay.
Just kidding.
Maggie, you have another thought?
First of all, I'd like to respond to the councilman to my left, his comment regarding not being transparent. I don't think anyone's been more transparent in city council than I have. Walked into this office, never met these lawyers before. There's absolutely no existing relationship. In fact, I believe that the two attorneys sat here and explained that quite well, that I literally blew in from the street, knocked on the door, and we had coffee for the morning. We didn't spend a whole lot of time, but I realized that they had the talent and the experience that was needed. You got more information out of them than I did when I was there. So in terms of being open, I think I've been more than open and quite frankly, probably hopefully a role model for some of my council members in terms of transparency on city council.
Oh, my God.
Additionally, and the relationship issue doesn't exist. I think that's just a red herring because someone's in a sandbox that they're getting kicked out of. But other than that, I have a question for Johnson Rosati. We're going to take an example. Let's take the Art Craft building downtown. Do you think you personally have the chutzpah to go up against that landlord's attorney? And if need be, tear that building down if you had to? If you got inside and realized that it was an absolute dangerous condition?
Yeah, I think we would have to find out what's going on. We would need to get our dangerous building ordinance in place. I think you want to have all the tools in place.
You think you could get a judge to give you an order? Do you think you could fight that battle, take that building
Yes.
down?
Yes.
Okay, you're not qualified to do the job. Let me tell you why. That's a building with a common wall. There isn't a judge out there that will allow you to take down a building with a common wall.
We would never have an interest to do that anyway.
That is the problem, sir. That's the problem.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, just one more thing, that simple one, that our retainer is $9,000 a month. It's not, anything that's additional for legal services is going to be in addition to that $9,000 a month. So it's not like we're reducing the load on Johnson Rosati and it's being supplemented by Burns if they get involved. So you just need to understand that everything is up and above that $9,000 retainer.
Yeah, more discussion.
Joe?
So the other thing that kind of bothers me, and I know it's late, but I think this is an important discussion. So if this takes however much time, I'm going to take as much time as needed, is people really want change, and they want this done. They want to hire the experts, really. I mean, we're such close friends to Brighton, close to them. It's not as if we're hiring strangers here. I mean, this is a proven. Hey, okay, I don't laugh at you, but that's okay.
No, it's just some of these comments. Anyways, I'm sorry, Joe, go ahead. Go
All right,
ahead.
so the idea that we have to stick with the same law firm, we can't branch out for a special project, is just, It's preposterous to me. I mean, you look at other communities, they have more than one law firm, and to say, oh, we have to stick with this, to me, I'm just going to come out and say, it sounds like there's people that are trying to protect the interests of Johnson Rosati, and that's all it's about. This isn't about fixing the downtown for some people.
Who are these people, Joe?
Well,
No, seriously.
I'm not looking for an argument.
Let him
but-
finish, Mike, and you can have another shot at it.
But that's what this is about here, people. It's not about, it's about doing things the old way or doing things a better way. That's what this is about. It's about protecting the interests. And what I'm looking at is protecting our city. But you want to attack me? Go ahead, interrupt me. I'm willing to, I can defend myself.
Are you done?
I'm done.
Mike?
I'm just curious if anyone on this council has gone to Johnson Rosati and had a cup of coffee and discussed, blight. Walked in the door and said, hey, how can we deal with this problem? We're all willing to go and jump in bed with somebody else because we had a cup of coffee and kind of found out what happened with, their progress against this landlord. Has anyone done that with Johnson Rosati?
I have, absolutely. I've been.
Well, that's my point.
Yeah.
That's my point.
Tim and I talk regularly about these things and what progress has been made in Brighton. What are the things that we can glom onto to not reinvent this whole thing?
Right.
How does he's had comments about the actual ordinance for dangerous buildings and how Burns has done an interpretation that's a little spin on that he sees as vulnerability and wants to talk to us about that.
You kind of jumped in before I was trying.
well,
No.
I really
The
am
point
sorry.
I was trying to make: the people that are advocating a change to another law firm haven't even given Johnson Rosati the opportunity to have the same discussions regarding blight with a sit down and a cup of coffee. That's the only point I'm trying to make. Thank you.
Mr.
Glenn,
Mayor?
did you want to finish your
No,
comment?
actually not.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, go ahead.
The reason that I personally did not call up Johnson Rosati and go have a cup of coffee is because I had prior experience with them and had no confidence in their ability to handle the matter. That's why I actually went out and said, I want to talk to the attorneys that won the Supreme Court decision with the difficult landlord in Brighton. So for me, it was an educated decision not to go and talk with Johnson Rosati. I can't speak for anybody else why they haven't gone, but all I know that, it's a shame. You have an opportunity for some very good lawyers to come in, to do the job, start tomorrow if you want, and start moving forward. And this is why the city doesn't get things done, because this is the political opposition.
All right,
That's all I'm
Sorry,
saying.
thought you were
Okay,
done.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
all right. I'm going to make my comments unless,
Could I do one more?
if you guys are done, I will make a comment. Go ahead, Glenn.
Because certainly there's no reason to try to vilify us for having our opinion, so that's just a starting point. But would you have, I'm projecting that this isn't going to be approved. It's going to be 3-3, and you can't win without a majority. So would you have a resistance to the idea of having this conversation with Tim with the understanding that we would like to all be confident that they're going to lead us on the right path?
I will answer that question by his response when I asked him if he would take the building down. He realized that I was right. You're not going to get a court order to take a building down when there's a common wall. You didn't.
We don't want the building down irrespective of anything.
No, it doesn't matter. The problem was the lack of knowledge of what could be done. That is what I'm talking about. You can't get a court order to take down a building with a common wall. It's a
One
problem.
person doesn't make these decisions for crying
Glenn,
out
Glenn,
loud.
let one person finish now.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Well,
All right.
I mean, this is just a disingenuous
If-
discussion.
my-
That just irks the crap
I'm
out
going
of
to
me.
make my comments. We've heard everyone at least 2 to 3 times now. I was very impressed with the presentation that the Burns law firm gave us a couple of weeks ago. And what I was most impressed with was the common sense building of a case and building of a plan that then was carried through. I thought that was very, very well demonstrated to us. I also have a problem with, we've not discussed, with the number of hours. The letter says that they're willing to work for $150 an hour, but there's no cap on those hours. So if we offer this to them, it's like writing a blank check. And I don't know where that comes from in our budget. So I have those two concerns. The other concern that I do have is that when we interviewed the law firms for their Johnson Rossetti, I'm sorry, I'll start over on that. When we did the interviews, responding to the RFP for law firms, we had a half a dozen at least that we interviewed. We spent a good long day doing interviews. I think maybe it was even 2 days. And I think I was the only person on this panel that took part in those interviews. When the decision was made by that committee, Johnson Rossetti's presentation and firm and professionalism was far and away the best fit for City of South Lyon. And I don't know that that's changed. We can go out for another RFP, but I don't think we need to do that. So for a number of different reasons, and I'm not going to beat them all to death. Mike made good comments on them too. I have a problem with changing horses in midstream. All right, thank you.
If I may comment?
Yeah.
So, one of the things, and I'm not trying to speak for John, it's unfortunate he's not here because it would be nice to hear the perspective of our current mayor. But again, I'm not trying to speak for him, but he did talk about change, so I would be curious to see what his perspective was in front and speak to the audience and give his thoughts. So I want to entertain the idea of holding this off for a vote until John can get back so we can make a full decision as a council, because I think not having the mayor have input in such a major decision that I really think is crucial. I really think we have a line in the sand where we can go forward or backwards for the reasons I said already.
Am I hearing a motion to postpone?
Well, I'm getting there.
Okay.
So it's important to have our mayor there who can drive the ship and hopefully move us forward. So that's why I will make the motion to postpone this until the next city council meeting with the intention to vote on it for an eventual resolution.
Is there a second to the motion? The motion to postpone is in order.
With the full council, I'd like to add.
The motion is in order.
I second.
Seconded by Dudakis. Is there any discussion on the motion to postpone? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. No.
No.
The noes have it. The matter is still before us tonight.
I would like to comment that that doesn't preclude this from being raised again,
Right.
so,
Maggie, would you like to make your motion?
I mean, at a subsequent meeting.
Well, I make a motion that city council retain the services of the Paul Burns Law Firm for a limited purpose for 18 months to assist the city in blight and code enforcement in the downtown area.
Is there a second to that
I'll
motion?
second.
Seconded by Rizzi. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, I have further discussion. So basically, for everybody watching, what just happened was you had 3 council members say, absolutely not.
No, we haven't voted on
Well,
anything.
no, this is, okay, you can talk procedurally, yes, I know you're an expert in that, but what it comes down to is we talked about postponing this for the full council to have the mayor's input, and you had 3 council members who said, no, I'm not willing to wait for the mayor's input. It's that simple. We don't want it to happen, okay? That's what happened. So now we're voting on it, and it's going to go down 3-3, just as we voted on, and we're not going to hire them. I'm trying to simplify things. You can talk about parliamentary
That's
rules,
nice and
I'm out of
simple.
order, you can gavel me, but that's what's happening
I
tonight.
heard a different vote, but then that's all right. You heard what you heard, I heard a different vote.
Mayor, really quick.
Yes.
Councilwoman Kurtzwell, do you happen to know, are we going to be able to see a contract before we actually retain them?
Well, they would have to present a retainer, the council would have to look at it, and I would suggest that they come back at the next meeting and present their plan for how they would move forward. You have to remember, if you retained them at your next meeting, you're going to be lucky to even start this program until April. I'm sure there's intake that has to be done, ordinances that have to be in line, so you're looking, you're 90 days out. So, you know what? Keep Johnson Rosati if you want. You know, we'll be here another year talking about the same issue. I just,
All right, we're
Wait,
speaking to the motion now,
Just to the
please.
question, I just want to know, if we vote in favor of the Burns firm, I would just want to know black and white what the contract is, what they propose, and that it's not a cut and dry, they're hired, they're not hired. So I would like to know, is there a cap? What are their plans, things like that
that's
in
what you-
writing?
If you decide to vote and for some reason the vote goes through tonight, then I would suggest that the city manager invite them back next week or the next council meeting, present a proposed retainer, ask questions on it, do whatever you want, exclude information, include information. You know, maybe what it is, it's a bipartisan retainer agreement where some of the work stays with Johnson Rosati, but the lead attorneys would be the Paul Burns Law Firm. You know, I think you have options to work it out.
Thank you.
But I will say with Joe, I'm somebody who wants to go with the winner.
All right. The motion is before us. There are no further discussion.
Mr. Mayor?
I'm gonna ask for a roll call vote because I think someone misheard the last vote. I want to make sure we all hear it correctly.
Actually, just a moment, Mr. Mayor. If the motion that I heard is correct, and can you please restate it?
My motion is to retain the services of the Paul Burns Law Firm for no longer than 18 months for the limited purpose of assisting the city in dealing with blight and code enforcement in the city, in the city of South Lyon downtown.
Are we, my question would be for the council, are we, because this sounds like a generic, no hours, limited,
You can deal with that when they come in. You got 2 weeks to come up.
The
that's-
motion is the motion.
that's not the way the motion is coming across to me, so I would like some clarification for when I speak to them if the motion goes
A
forward.
retainer agreement is subject to council approval.
Okay.
Still have your second, Joe?
Yes.
All right. Call the roll, please.
Kimball,
No.
Zadakis,
Yes.
Rizzi,
Yes.
Waddell,
No.
Kramer,
No.
Kurzweil,
Yes,
Motion fails.
thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, next we have a discussion regarding the hiring of a grant writer. And I think, Mary, did you put this on the
I
agenda?
did. I requested
Would you like to
this.
lead that discussion?
Like I said, I had gone to a newly elected officials training and spoke with various different communities, council members from various communities, and each of them had the same thing to say to me: hire a grant writer, get a good one, because that's where all your money's going to come from, and you're not going to have to tax your citizens and your residents. So I think it would behoove us to look at the people who either have credentials who were hired on to grant write and figure out, okay, what are you doing? Have you been writing grants? Have you been researching? Have we done this? Have we retained any money? I just would like basically a rundown of what's going on, because I feel like we're a little bit in the dark here. There's a lot of money out there that we could get our hands on, and I feel like this should be priority number one. And I know I don't want to put anyone under attack, but I know previously, Lynn, you had spoken about you had a lot on your plate, you have a lot of different duties and delegations and things of that nature. But I think priority number one should be grant writing, and I know you were hired as part of your job to be a grant writer, and I think grant writing may have taken a back burner. So I would just like to have this resurfaced. Who in our community that we have hired in the city is capable of grant writing, and are they doing it, and what are they doing?
I think there's a question first to Lynn, and then you.
I do have grant writing experience. That is something that the council was interested in with me, and yes, it has taken a backseat priority as we have several other issues that have been what I would consider higher priority in dealing with in the past 18 months. Planning Commission issues, the issue that is up for discussion in the executive session this evening, personnel issues, the plan development for the Knolls, as well as we have, I think, 5 different subdivisions currently working with us on utility dedication. That takes a considerable amount of time and research. I did send out to the listserv of other managers statewide about grant writers that they use, and found out that actually almost to a city, they either use internal staff to write grants or they use their engineering firms to write their grants. So I'm not sure, short of approaching the Dorothy Johnson Center at Grand Valley State, which deals with philanthropy and grant writing and has actual classes in that, whether we're going to be able to find certified grant writers that have substantial experience that are outside of people that we already have on staff.
All right, let's talk turkey. Exactly how much have we brought in via grant writing?
For the city thus far?
Yes.
While I've been here, we've only had the RAP grants that the police department has brought in. The DDA is currently looking at the blight elimination grant that MSHDA puts in. I'm working with the Parks and Rec Commission on the MEDC grant for patronosity, also to do improvements of Volunteer Park, but we have not written any grants thus far. The meeting prior to my starting, the City Council chose not to move forward with a grant for the SAW, which is the Sewer Asset Management Program that was presented by HRC, which would have brought in a significant amount of money to pay for that. Now we have to pay for that out of pocket.
Why was that? Why can't
That
we?
was a vote that the council themselves determined. You would have to
Does
ask.
anyone who was on council have anything to say about that? Can I get a little
I could
background?
speak to that if you would like me to.
Absolutely, thank you.
What concerned the council over the SAW grant was, in order to get the SAW grant, you had to guarantee repair of anything that was found wrong with your system within a 3-year period. And what shouldered or come along with that repairing was also increase in rates to fund those repairs. And part of the council was very concerned about that.
Increase the rates to the citizens? Is that what you're
Correct.
saying? Okay, yeah, well then I completely agree with that
And
decision.
that's what, but let me tell you, with that would have come funding and help in the asset management program that I'm going to be attending here shortly with 2 of my people. And the problem with that program is it's an unfunded mandate that the city is now responsible to move forward on, but we're treated the same way as Detroit, Ann Arbor, and Grand Rapids, where departments are very large with people, IT people, clerical people that you have on staff to do it. I have a 7-man department that we run the entire utility system in the city, but now we have to also allocate extensive asset management on our system. Is it a good thing? Sure it is. But you talk about spreading that frosting awfully thin, this is causing even more,
Well, there's clearly strings attached, and I agree with your decision 100%. Sorry, I just want some clarification.
yeah, but that's what
Thank
it
you.
was, Mary. I wanted you to know that.
Thank you, I appreciate you clarifying, absolutely.
Absolutely. But we also did get the DWRF grant just prior to you. We did that in the last 5 years, which that was a $6 million grant that we had 50% forgiveness on. And the city's paying a $2.5 million bill back over 20 years at 2%.
Okay, that's
All
excellent.
right.
I guess what I would like to see is a write-up of what grants we are researching, attacking, what we're getting from them, what we've already written grants for, and have we gotten anything back from that? I just want to see a little bit more transparency on on your end maybe, and write that up and pass that along to us. So that way we can show the citizens, hey, listen, we are taking action and trying to get free money essentially and not tax our residents. Because if that's an option out there, I think we should definitely utilize it. There's no reason not to. We have nothing to lose. Thanks.
Mike?
Is there any way to tie the hiring of a grant writer into the next topic, which is discussion regarding job responsibilities for the economic development coordinator?
Yeah.
I mean, is that something
Oh,
that
absolutely.
maybe we could kill two birds, and I hate to use that expression, with one
Especially for
stone?
the sake of time.
Yeah, I
Yes.
mean, just because,
Oh, and they make sense, too.
yeah, I mean, it kind of jumps into that. So, I mean, is that something we're gonna be looking at as far as if we look at the job responsibilities regarding the economic development coordinator, if that's somebody we're gonna hire, maybe with an emphasis on grant writing, that might be a added bonus.
Mike, or Mr. Mayor, I was gonna say I could
Mike,
speak to that
go.
here because I added that to the agenda. And actually, I was gonna kind of segue and make that suggestion. So I can start if you would like me to, or someone else.
Yeah, no, I'm
Let's
fine. I'm
finish
done.
on the grant writer,
Yeah.
then we'll go to that.
Yeah.
But a couple of you are right that, we write the job description, and if grant writing is a priority to it, we can include it. Mary, is there anything else on
No,
grants?
we're good.
Anyone else?
Well, I would want to say that, I mean, I think that that's great information to have at hand. It also is encumbering more of her time to never, ever allow her time to be able to write or pursue a grant.
I know you're busy, and I don't intend to make your life worse. I'm sorry.
No.
But I feel like for the sake of knowing, that's some information that's vital for our city.
I understand.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Just down to the grant issue, I am actually helping the Cultural Arts Commission look for grants. So I won't be doing any grant writing, but as you probably know, looking for the grant is what is time consuming. So I am tapping into as many art individuals that I know, everywhere from Detroit to Ferndale. Anybody who's got a mural on a wall, I want to know who paid for it, how did they get it paid. So there are a couple of us art aficionados out there that are trying to look for grants to assist the Cultural Arts Commission. And then with Josie Kearns coming on the Art Commission, she's got grant writing background. Hopefully this will be another piece of the puzzle, in terms of the grant writing issue.
And I would point out two things. Have not wanted to bring these forward to the council because there are costs associated with them. There is a directory, it's called the Foundation Directory online. It is an online service that the city can subscribe to. It would give us access to a list of every foundation, every organization, every business that does grants, what their grant cycle is. It gives you access to their 990s, so you see what projects they have funded in the past. It's a resource that I have used privately in personal grant writing that I've done for organizations that I've been involved with. But it does come at a cost. There are also organizations such as eCivis and Government Efficiency that will provide for a service a listing on a regular basis of all state, local, and federal grants that are available to communities that we could apply for. But again, these are services that cost. If the city is interested in subscribing to these services so that we have a better resource of knowing exactly what's out there for all of our boards and commissions for the city, I'd be more than happy to bring those proposals, those costs to the council, and that would give us greater resources to find some of those rather than going straight through the federal registry ourselves individually looking for grants, which is what I'm doing right now.
Okay, so just out of curiosity, just to clarify what you just said, we don't have access to that program yet where we can get regular grants on a daily basis or regular basis?
No, those are services you have to subscribe to.
Because I personally feel like that would be an investment we should make because that would be less time consuming for you and not putting this issue on the back burner. That's an investment that I think will pay for itself if we were to utilize it. So, and again, I mean, you wouldn't necessarily need to hire an assistant or hire someone on to do that because it's a system that's going to generate what grants are out there and you don't have to research. It's going to be less time consuming.
Correct.
I think we should do it.
I find it hard to imagine that first off, you got to identify what is it that you'd like to pursue. I mean, you're not just going through reams and reams of stuff whatever grant might be available, and then you decide whether that holds any interest for you. Can't you just use a search engine? I want a grant for arts or music or,
It's not that simple, no.
huh.
It's really not.
I just can't feature because these sites that you're even speaking to sounds as though there's probably reams of grants on these sites. to be able
There
to
are,
filter.
with the foundation directory online, one of the nice things is you can put in your state of residency, the topic that you are researching grants for, approximately.
It'll refine the search.
Yeah,
from
it'll
that.
refine
Yeah,
the search for you, very much so, and same with these other subscription services for the state and the federal grants.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Maggie?
Just like to address a comment for Councilman Kivel. Just to expand on that, as you know, I sat on the board of directors of a nonprofit, here in town. And we did extensive grant searching, for that organization. And sometimes what happens is that you find a grant for a project that's not in your strategic plan. But if it has applicability at some point, you may shift your priorities in that strategic plan because now you have an opportunity for a grant that otherwise, maybe 5 years from now, you wouldn't. So that grant searching process isn't as narrow focused on the strategic plan as maybe one would think. Is that you look at all the grants and then say, okay, what are my possibilities of using this grant? It's not in the strategic plan for 2016, but it's in 2018. Do we go for it now? Blah, blah, blah. It's a fine art in grant writing and grant searching. It really is. It's not as easy as one would think, but
Well, I don't think that it's easy.
yeah.
Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I used to have access to a grant writer who did a roster every month of available grants. And
Just see if anyone was.
I always
interested
made them
in it.
available to the city. I don't have that access anymore, but the problem wasn't identifying grants so much as having the time to actually write the darn thing. That's the time consuming, and that's the real skill set, of those. Anyway, all right, nothing further on grants?
No.
All right, then let's move on to job responsibilities for the Economic Development Coordinator. And Mr. Rizzi, that's your item.
Yeah, so I think this is a good segue because one of the, excuse me, I'm sorry. I made a note here. So one of the reasons, or I would say the main reason for me, at least, was that we hired you, Lynn, was your knowledge and grants. And to me, it kind of seemed as if it was a good, smart business decision, because I remember the question was asked sitting right here on a Saturday when, for whatever reason, the interviews weren't taped, where we said, would you be able to write grants for the city and get them start working at it immediately? And the question you answered was yes. And I think what happens sometimes is in city government, we often get so wrapped up in government, slow, bureaucratic, red tape, and we don't think about savings, getting money, being business smart. And what I mean by that is what we have is a problem in that we don't have that many grants that we should be getting. And what I look at is what is the solution and how can we take a business approach. Now, I'm glad that you provided this memo here, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but basically what it says is that you're looking for somebody for administrative staff. 50 hours, 20 hours per week, $12 an hour comes out to $12,000, okay? Now, I actually like this memo because they're not, as it says here, they're not going to be eligible for benefits due to part-time nature, so it's not going to cost the city an arm and a leg to pay for benefits. They're just somebody who wants to help administratively. So to me, I look at the business side of this and I say, okay, $12,000. Okay, if we spend $12,000 and that frees up, which was my next point of the job responsibilities, which quite frankly, I was a little baffled that you're taking minutes and doing all these, making copies of the agenda. The city manager making close to $95,000 a year should not be making copies of the city council agenda. That's just ridiculous. So if we could hire this person for $12,000 and we bring in a grant that's going to save us $50,000, it's a no-brainer. And that's what I mean by taking a business approach, is we need to look at it that way. Now, specifically about the job responsibilities, yes, I heard what you said about very busy, have this, have X, Y, and Z. Okay, but the priorities don't change. Priority, we have to provide excellent city services to our residents. That's never going to change. You have to manage your employees effectively. Never going to change. Bring in grants and run the day-to-day I mean, the number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 priorities don't change. So in my mind, grants should be up in the priorities. So, and that's the same for the economic development coordinator. You're going to have all these day-to-day responsibilities, but really there should be 2 priorities that you should be aligned with. Number 1, getting grants. Number 2, bringing businesses downtown. Everything else is just noise and stuff that needs to be done in the background. So the point I'm making is, regarding the responsibilities, I don't want to get too bogged down on, okay, we got to do this, X, Y, and Z. Okay, that's all just side work. So I want to get you the help that you need so we can make those a priorities, getting the grants. And kind of what Mary said, it would be nice to see having some obtainable goals. This is what I'm searching for. This is what I'm working on. And then we get you the people you need. We take out, like, for example, it said that you having update to Facebook statuses. I'm on Facebook. I don't make no secrets about that. And I know it doesn't take your full day. You can do that in 5 minutes. You don't have to, you're not all over the place on Facebook doing stuff. So I don't understand why that comment was even made. But the point I'm making is, you could have this person do that. And then that's one thing you could take off of your list.
I agree. That's why I provided this memo as something for us to discuss at the next meeting.
Yeah. So, but again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier about having these clear objectives with the vision session. I'm trying to come up with the same theme, is we can talk about it all we want, but unless we're actually going to have follow through and be smart about it, then it's not going to be effective. So I guess the point of my story in summary is the responsibilities for the economic development coordinator, we just need to keep in mind it's bringing in businesses and bringing grants. You should be the lead. You should tell her what grants to go after, and that's what she should do. And if you need the help, let's get it for you. That's it. Thank you.
Any other comments? Maggie?
It may be outdated, so let me know if I have something outdated in my pack from the 28th, or my packet on the 28th. But I was looking at the job title for the Community Development and Economic Development Specialist. And there's some very laudable functions there. They, leads the city marketing initiative, promotes city land sales. Let's see, coordinate zoning plan review, assist developers on programs to rehab and build housing, manage state and federal grants, MDOT. And I think my mantra tonight, or my theme tonight, has been about credentials. What are your credentials? What are you qualified to do? So when I looked at this description, I go to the back and I look at the requirements. And here it says, must possess a high school diploma or a GED. So I'm looking at this and I'm saying there is no way a GED or high school graduate is going to be able to perform these essential job functions, because if that's the case, then the position has already failed. This is a position that I would think is college degree, which is something that I think the city needs to do, is upgrade the academic credentials of some of the staff members, is to get the college degree individuals in here. And if you could find somebody possibly that is working on a master's degree, that would be of assistance. But I think there is a tremendous disconnect here with what the job is asking for, and what, like I said, maybe my material's outdated.
You should have in your packet that was for discussion at the last meeting 3 job descriptions. One is the Community Development, Economic Development Specialist, which is the job description that I was going to use when I proposed to the council during the budget process last year, bringing our community development person on staff full-time instead of part-time. She had that education. She had the grant writing experience. The council chose not to move forward with making that a full-time position. So that is what this community economic development description is. There should be two more. One is those job descriptions split out into two, one an economic development specialist and one a community development specialist.
Are you still requiring GEDs for these?
No.
Okay.
The economic development specialist requires at least an associate's degree and some college experience, preferably experience in economic development with training towards their CECD, which is your Community Economic Development Certification. Those are in the qualifications. And our community development specialist, it does require a associate's or some college degrees with preferred AICP certification, which we have with our current community development part-time specialist.
What's her background?
She has a background in,
College.
what's her college? Kelly, would you like to? She's right here, so.
I don't know if you want me to stand up.
Microphone, please.
I went to the University of Maryland, College Park. I got my master's in community planning. I am an American Certified Planner. I have been for 15 years. I have worked local government. I've worked consulting firms. I've worked for nonprofits.
Okay, master's degree?
Master's degree.
Thank you.
Do you have experience grant writing?
I have some experience grant writing. Yes, I mean, my specialty, what I am really good at is the community planning aspect. That is what I like to do. That is what I'm really good at. And I think that if you would discuss further, with city manager, that probably someone that's specializing in economic development would be, someone that could go after grants. I mean, and economic development is more than just going after grants.
Correct, I
It's,
understand that, yeah.
There's a lot more
I was
that's
just
involved in
curious.
that. Yeah.
Out of curiosity.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep, sure.
Just one more question.
Yes.
Have you done a strategic plan for a DDA?
No. I usually the communities I've worked with all have DDA directors, which is completely separate than
Yeah,
community
say
planner.
full-time. Yeah.
Full-time staff,
Yeah.
yeah, full-time plus, yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, I have another comment.
Go ahead.
Lynn, I have a quick question for you on the job title for Community Development Specialist, and this is not the first one, not the second one.
Should be the third one.
Job description. It says manage state and federal grants. Could you expound on manage? Are you talking about just looking for, or are we talking about presentations? Are we talking about writing? Because I believe there's been a lot of comments tonight about how grant writing is an art or a skill. And I would like to think that somebody who has an associate's, I don't know if I have that much confidence. Not that an associate's is a fantastic degree, it is, definitely, but I just would like a little bit more confidence in somebody who's writing grants for South Lyon.
Under the community development specialist in managing those, it is more a matter of handling the administrative paperwork for those as opposed to doing the grant writing.
Excellent. And then I wanted to voice one more concern. For the job title, Community Development and Economic Development Specialist, this requires a GED or high school equivalent. Advises developers on programs to rehab, build housing. I don't know if a GED is qualified to advise anybody on housing. I mean, I don't know. I can't speak because I'm not an expert, but that's
Certainly,
just my
there's
gut.
plenty of tradespeople that are more than qualified.
Okay. I would
And
like
that
to
was,
see
that
some
was
kind
the
of
question,
skill.
is a lot of times you will find people that have experience in the construction industry, the building industry, project management industry, that don't have degrees, that would have had jobs similar to that.
And if you don't have a degree, that's fine. There's a lot of people who are brilliant who do not have degrees, but I would like to see some skill set behind that. A GED, I don't want anyone to be hired and advising people when they shouldn't be.
Right.
That's my concern.
And as you noticed, that the GED requirement has been taken out of both of the proposed job descriptions. We're requiring at least some college for
Must
both the
possess high school diploma or GED
uh,
is what I have on my packet, unless my packet's outdated.
No, that was the proposal that I had made to the council last year when they decided not to move our former employee, Kristen Delaney, who actually did have a master's degree,
Okay.
to a full-time. She has left the city and has taken a full-time job elsewhere. So we don't have those resources with her any longer. So in doing that, and in the city's decision not to move forward to moving her to a full-time, I've broken that job description into the two other job descriptions, which require a minimum of an associate's and the CED preferred and the AICP certified.
Okay, because I didn't see that in my packet, so forgive me, but that's my mistake then, because it's.
Well,
I haven't seen
you
it
should have
in-
had all three job
I have
descriptions.
all three, but I don't see anywhere in here where it says, for that first job description, it specifically says must possess high school diploma or GED. I don't see anything about associates.
And that's because that job description is no longer valid, because it's not a full-time position. That, if you read the first line on that job description, it says this is a full-time hourly non-exempted position. And that's the direction I was hoping to go a year ago, was to make it a full-time position, based on the staff that we already had.
To clarify, this isn't even up for consideration. This whole entire job description, the first one,
No.
is not even a question.
No,
It's
it's
just in our packet to be in our packet.
It was to show you the direction I wanted to go last year. When the council decided not to move in that direction, we had to break that into two different positions and go in a
Thank you.
different direction.
Mike had a comment?
I hate to make this, but the one point that nobody's brought up in this discussion about any of these two positions, even the grant writer, is that it's great to talk about it. The problem is, if you want the proper skill set, you're gonna have to pay for it. So, I mean, if we finally come up with a skill set that we're happy with in a description for employment position with the city, we're gonna have to be willing to pay for that position. So it's one thing that we can talk, again, circles, but let's do something about it. If we actually come up with these positions, we're gonna have to pay for them. So that's something that needs to be considered by this entire council. Otherwise, we just wasted 20 minutes discussing positions that we may not ever fill, because at some point, when we're trying to say, okay, you need a college degree, then you're gonna have to pay for the college degree. And I just want everybody to realize that. So going forward with this, if we are gonna go forward with this, at some point, we're gonna have to pay. So
I
just-
completely agree with you. I think this is just the spawn of a discussion, especially because it's just the first night that we're discussing it. I would hope that we would be willing to make an investment in, unless we look at the people that we have on our team right now and say, hey, you've got the experience, you do it, we don't need to invest in anybody else, but we need to make this your sole priority, or just something on your to-do list that takes high priority. We don't need to hire anybody else if you don't want to, but I think it's clear that Lynn needs help. You're doing a great job, but I think you do need assistance.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Joe.
So, yeah, Mike, I think you were heading in the right direction in saying, yeah, it's going to cost something about the talking in circles. And that's why I wanted to try and put a fine point on this since I put this on here. We need grants is the bottom line. So that's the problem. What's the solution? Okay, my solution and my plan is, you said you could get us grants, so you should be the lead, and Kelly, correct? Kelly can help you, and we take off this other little piddly stuff you have that you do. I don't mean to or downgrade what it is, but that shouldn't be done by you, like I said. So we take that off. We hire this person for $12,000, and you need to reprioritize and start bringing in some money. I mean, that's my plan, and hopefully you bring in more than $12,000, and it'll be a good solution.
That's the priority and the direction the council will go. Just give me the authorization and we will start the search.
But I'd like to see some kind of plans for what you're going to be going after to have some confidence that it will be a return on the investment.
Are you done?
Yes.
Maggie.
What I would also like to add to the discussion is that from day one, I've been about investment in the city, by the city. You know, the city can't ask everybody else to make an investment and then not turn around, not make an investment themselves. So I'm very pro making that investment, whether it's an employee going back to college and upgrading the credentials, you know, at City Hall. I think, I don't know what your signing authority is for budgets, what you're allowed to spend without council approval, but I think I would take a look at that program that has the list of the grants. And if it's within your authority, I think, and you've got the budget and the money for it, you don't have to subscribe to it forever, but you could sure subscribe to it for the next year and look for some grants and get this thing going. We're wasting time. We're wasting time.
Valuable time.
Anything further?
One
Mary?
more. I am so sorry. Okay. Here's the thing. Have we thought about maybe bringing in someone as an intern to do the social media, to do the copying of packets, to do things of that nature that isn't as substantive, that wouldn't require a degree, that would help you with your busy work? Because I feel like they could come in, they can get their less than 20 hours a week, write that off as school credit. I don't know exactly how that works, but that might be something to look into where we wouldn't have to pay, they would benefit from their hours, and you would benefit from getting work done.
We did look into and apply to have an intern assigned here last year. We were not selected as a city. However, I did meet with Joe Owen, one of the facilitators. He is a former professor at Eastern. He is going to pass on to his colleagues in the public policy and public administration program that we are interested in interns.
Excellent.
And it is my goal in the next budget year to put in for that. Have talked to communities across the state. There's different ways to fund it. Most communities actually just pay a stipend rather than an hourly wage to the interns. That way there's less worry about crossing over the Affordable Care Act, having to offer benefits, different things like that. So that's what we're looking into.
Are you going to pursue that again then? Because
Actually, I'm going to pursue it directly with Eastern University to see if they can place some of their students, and with the University of Michigan
Okay.
and other local universities here, not just through the Local Government Managers Association placements.
could you keep us posted on that? Because I would be
Can.
interested in knowing what's going on, the update, of if we do get accepted, or if we can look at other universities as well. Washtenaw, whatever it might be.
Right.
Thank you.
I think we killed that.
Well said. All right, let's move on. This is something we can actually vote on. The revised IT Clemis agreement. Chiefs?
Yes, this is an update of a longstanding agreement and working relationship with Oakland County Clemis. And for the viewing audience, Clemis stands for Court and Law Enforcement Management Information System. It has a lot to do with not only the police department records management, but also fire department's records management. In fact, they are included on this agreement. It also has to do with records keeping for the police reports, computer-aided dispatch for our radio and scout car system, and dispatch at Novi. And they have revised the agreements and would like to standardize the agreements with all of the local communities. Hopefully, this is just a housekeeping issue. It has been reviewed by Johnson Rosati, and Mr. Wilhelm is prepared to speak to that. But from
And
the
has a
police and
memo
fire
included.
perspectives, we recommend approval.
Discussion.
This is limited to the Article 5 and 10.
Correct. Mr. Mayor Pro Tem?
Go ahead.
I don't know how much detail we want to get into this. This is the county's attempt to create uniform agreements. It's really a cafeteria style for IT services. The city is interested in Exhibit X for Clemis, and the OakNet connectivity, as I understand, is the communication part of it that is necessary to have Clemis if you want to communicate in a particular technological manner. It is a 5-year contract, and it can be terminated upon 120 days written notice by either party. There is a lot of detail in here about the obligations of the various parties, responsibilities. If there are any specific questions, I can try and address them. David Gillum from my firm did participate on behalf of South Lyon and several other communities that our office represents in the creation of Exhibit X dealing with just the Clemis part, which is the fire and law enforcement part of this. So he is recommending that the Exhibit X Clemis portion is acceptable, and I'm not sure how much flexibility or how receptive the county would be to specific changes in that anyway. So if there are any specific questions, I'd be certainly happy to try and answer them.
Go ahead, Mike.
Chief, you're okay with this?
We're very much in favor of it. We couldn't even come close to providing our own radio system and our own records management system for the amount that we pay Clemis.
All right, and Chief Kennedy, you're okay with this?
Absolutely. They offer a 75% subsidy for the fire side of it, so it's, as Chief Collins said, there's no way we could third-party this and come up with a remotely similar agreement.
Okay, that's all I have.
Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion that we approve the revised IT Clemis agreement with Oakland County.
I second that motion.
All right, Kramer and Dudakis, is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That motion carries. And now, discussion again, considering the sale of city-owned real estate located at 0 South Warren Street.
Okay, the city was approached by a real estate broker asking if we were interested in selling parcel 2130-276-001. In the county's system, that is addressed as 0 Warren Street. It is a parcel, I believe I provided you a map of, that is approximately 48 feet wide at its widest, going down to 41 by 198 feet long. It currently is best described as the scrub brush on the north end of the McCaddy parking lot at the end of Warren Street, right next to the vacant lot north to it. In doing research with the county to make sure that this was actually ours, because it is partially described as half of the vacated street of Lewis Street, which was a platted street in 1948. Did find some issues that would have to be resolved before we could even put this up for sale. Some of those issues are, if the resolutions the county has on file for having vacated Lewis Street were properly filed with both the county and the state, and the original plats replatted. It also has some questions as to how the city obtained this ownership, because if you vacate a street or an alley, generally that property is turned over to the adjacent property owners. In this case, why was that not done? So a considerable amount of research would need to be done to make sure the city had clear title to sell this, that there was no other outstanding issues with the city's ownership of this if we did truly vacate the street. But from a more important perspective, I would not recommend that the city sell this parcel. While it is not a very large parcel, it does act as a buffer zone to the residential area between McCaddy Park and another potential multifamily development on that vacant lot. It also provides us an opportunity, if we would like to expand the parking lot at McCaddy Park, to do so by potentially an entire full car lane. And as we all know, McCaddy Park gets a considerable amount of use, so if we were to dispose of this, we wouldn't have that opportunity. I really think it's in the best interest of the city to retain this parcel and not offer it up to bid.
Mr. Ripperton?
Sure, go ahead, discussion.
So the question is, do we want to try and sell it, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so, I have a soft spot for McCaddy Park. I mean, just like so many other families, we take our kids there, we go and, hold on to the little slide and swing, and, I can't imagine changing that park, anything about it. It's beautiful. Just thinking about changing it in any way kind of upsets me. So my suggestion is hands off McCaddy, and the answer is, unless you're giving us $10 million or $15 million, it's not for sale. Move on. So that's how I feel.
Go ahead, Mike.
Was the developer only interested in that one parcel, or do you want the vacant parcel as well?
He only spoke to me about that parcel, but he indicated that if they got that parcel, the person he was working with was looking at the parcel to the north. It is zones multifamily residential, which is why I think they are interested in this parcel, because it would allow them to build more units on that vacant parcel, which again, to me, is all the more reason to keep this as a buffer between that residential if it does sell and the park.
Thank you.
Glenn?
We've spent an awful lot of money trying to augment our footprint of McCaddy Park. And if you consider that we're the successors of the railroad right-of-way that abuts that would have actually had legal title to that half of the road, it should be ours anyway. So I think we should be fighting tooth and nail to retain that.
Okay, so I didn't hear any anxiety toward selling this in a hurry. Okay, let's move on to discussion regarding delinquent real estate tax parcel 21-29-101.
Okay, this is another parcel. The city received a delinquent tax notice to the city's address with the owner listed as unknown. Trying to go back through all of the documentation with Lisa, with City Attorney Tim. There is some very complicated issues as to the ownership of this parcel. At some point, it was created as a child parcel of the original parcel, which was 110 East Lake. This parcel is 0.02 acres and sits directly behind what is the current resale shop, next to the alley between Lake Street and the post office. According to the county, they don't have anything on the treasurer's side really as an ownership. The only thing I could get was, or from the Register of Deeds, they don't have anything on ownership. The only thing I could find was when I talked to the county attorney or county treasurer, and they pulled up their title search, which shows that this parcel may or may not still belong to the Masonic Lodge of South Lyon.
Which is upstairs, right?
Correct. But the county doesn't know who owns it. We have it listed as an unknown owner. It is currently getting ready to go to tax foreclosure, and it would be my recommendation that the city stay out of this, allow it to go to tax foreclosure, and then, as we did with 390, when the city gets right of first refusal, we purchase it, add it to the alley parcel, and consolidate this, and that was really the cheapest way to get clear title on this, that may or may not be city-owned, may or not be owned by the Masonic Lodge, but the Masonic Lodge does not, to my understanding, know that they may or may not own this. There are several deeds. I think I provided them to you. That we have from information back in 2012, where there's some real, it's very complicated to clear up the title on this parcel.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
I brought this issue to the attention of Stephanie Morita, who deals a lot with our tax appeal, and she's very familiar with the tax process. She has a good relationship with Oakland County and the treasurer's office through that tax process. She's contacted Oakland County and alerted them to the issue regarding the unknown owner and the notice being sent to the city's address. And I think the first step in talking with her, I tend to agree with her. I think we may be able to make a first attempt to try and bring this to the county's attention, that they may not have an owner in place in their records, and that they may need to figure that out before proceeding with a tax foreclosure, so that they can square it away. And if they can't do that, then maybe we reevaluate whether the city needs to get involved and spend some time and energy trying to figure out exactly who should own this. But it's unclear, given the tax split issues and the title issues, how things ended up the way they are and who actually owns title to this parcel.
Well,
Go ahead, Glenn.
well, my only concern is how did the city get engaged in this? I mean, we
They sent us a
clearly
letter.
never held a role in that. Why would it be mailed to us?
That is the address, and it's on file with the county.
Yeah, and if you notice, the notice of foreclosure is to unknown at the city's address. Now, it appears that it may be that the tax split from the 2010 to 12 time period, there may have been a submission of documentation to the county saying that we were the owner, but it's not entirely clear, and the parcel numbers don't match up all that.
Marilyn's shaking her head.
If you have a comment, ma'am, come to the microphone, please.
Marilyn Smith, owner of the resale shop.
You own the building or just the business?
No, Masonic Temple owns the building.
Okay.
I lease from them. I seem to remember a few years ago, and Bob, you might remember when Dave Murphy was still around, I thought there was a survey done on that that said it was city-owned. Because he actually brought me some paperwork, and I don't know if I still have it, that said, oh, look, we thought the Masonic Temple owned it, and it turns out we own it. I mean, I'll dig through stuff at home and see if I kept it, but he brought me a map.
Was it like the
And I
piece
thought it
under the
was-
stairs? Was it like a small piece under your stairs?
That area? Well, he was talking
Lynn and I
about the
went and
alley.
looked
He
at
said
it.
from
It's
Wells.
right in the alley there.
Yeah, it's not the full alley, it's just a,
Well, what he brought though, he told me from Wells
I think
to
it's under her
Pontiac
stairs.
Trail and everything in between.
there is a parcel from Wells to Pontiac Trail that the city owns as an alley.
Right.
That is a .04 acre parcel, and that is called the alley.
Ours
And it
is
is,
twice as big as that one that she's talking.
but there is this this second parcel that's .02 acres that's somehow adjacent to the alley and adjacent to the Masonic Lodge resale building that is this unknown parcel with unknown ownership.
It
I'll see
juts
if I
in
can
ever
find
so
it.
little, just juts in a little bit.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find what he gave me. I don't know if I kept it or not.
Maggie had a comment. Let's not,
I think one of the reasons possibly that the city got notice is because if you look at the legal description, it is talking about a vacant alley adjacent. So probably what the county did was just look at the legal description and said, well, if there's an alley belongs to the city, put the city on notice, blah, blah, blah. Also, at this time, it's possible that, were you getting easements, was HRC getting easements in that area for what?
You know, when we paved it, we paved that area when we did the DWRF, so we acted as if it was ours.
Well,
because
then
we
somebody
paved that
must have done a survey to show that they owned, that the city owned the property. Because, I mean, knowing HRC, they don't do anything unless the survey's done and you own the property. I think, rather than the advice given by Johnson Rosati, I would go with what you said. This is a mess, just go ahead, let it go to foreclosure, let title get in your name and be done with it. It's a cheap process.
Well, if they can comply with the notice provision, I mean, if there's no unknown owner.
That's the
how
county,
can
let the
you,
county foreclose.
and let the county do the research
Yeah,
on
let
it.
the
Yeah, you bet, let them pay for all
Anytime we
the
get someone else
stuff.
to do the work, we'll go that way.
They want their money.
Anything else? All right, let's move on to a review of the city attorney invoices. Note that we also received a memo by email from Mr. Willem dated today, I believe, or yesterday maybe. Joe, this is your item.
Yeah, so as a little background, as we all know, there was a recent turnover in the city council, and one of the main driving themes that is very clear and evident is improving the downtown. So with that being said, anything that we do outside of retainer is going to cost money. going back to our discussion with the Paul Burns Law Firm, either if it's with the Paul Burns Law Firm or with Johnson Rosati. But the point I'm making is that since we are interested in improving the downtown, and that may cost extra money, we need to be very diligent about the money we are spending currently, and that's across the board. And that's why I agree wholeheartedly that going after grants is very important, because we need to save money wherever we can. With that being said, as some more history, last year, earlier this year, last year, it was just 2015 recently, we gave, Johnson Rosati asked for a 100% increase.
That's absolutely ridiculous.
That's what they were asking for. And then we settled on
That's just a bald lie.
then we settled on a 60%
Glenn,
increase.
you can reply to him.
Okay, well, we can review the tapes and the minutes, but I don't wish to argue. So we settled on a 60% increase from what we are currently paying. So with that being said, it seems as if during that review, I looked at the hours that we were spending, and it's been increasing ever since, and there may be varying circumstances, but the hours haven't increased in the past year. So what we have is much higher rate that we were paying a year ago, and much higher hours. So this is concerning, especially when we're trying to save money and make improvements to the downtown. So that's the first issue. The second issue is that the public, they have a right to know what we're paying for. Now, I understand attorney-client privileges. If some things are privileged, I don't want to review it. And we were given a packet of the invoices. Nothing was blacked out when it was given to me, and it was given to us to review at a public meeting. So to me, that means nothing's off limits. So certainly I want to go through some of these. I'm going to ask some questions, and if it's attorney-client privilege, let me know. I'll stop reading it. So that's the second issue, was it needs to be available to the public, and until now, it still is not available to the public, because I asked for this to be uploaded on the city website, and if you go there tonight, it's still not uploaded. So that's something I want to see going forward. And again, back to the attorney-client privileged, if it is privileged, it could be blacked out and uploaded. So this all came about because I asked for it. And with the theme of trying to understand how much money we're spending at an increased premium now today versus last year, I had some questions on some of the invoices, and I just wanted to go through them. But before I dig in, Glenn, I want to give an opportunity for anybody else to speak.
Want to finish you have the floor.
Yeah,
Please finish.
go for it.
Okay, so I just want to start on page 5 from the item that says 11/4/2015. Legal research regarding...
Councilman Rizzi, I would ask that you not read that particular entry based on the attorney-client privilege. That gets into what I was asked to do and the reason for it, and I would ask that you not get in that. Is there a way for you to ask the question, and I can give you some information without reading that entry verbatim?
Sure, yeah, I won't read it verbatim. You were working on something to do with our city charter.
It relates to a provision in the city charter, and it relates to the election of new council members and the taking of office after the election.
Okay. So the city charter is something public. I don't see how that would be.
Yeah.
I don't see how that would be attorney-client privileged if it's an election, which is a public.
I was asked for legal advice regarding a specific provision in the city charter.
Okay.
This entry in my bill reflects that request and the information that I was asked about.
Okay. So I'm still confused why that would
If
be
the
privileged.
council would like to waive that privilege, we can certainly do that. There's a way to do that. I just don't want to inadvertently have council waive a privilege without knowing about it. And if it's council's position that this is not privileged, then I guess it doesn't matter if you waive it. But to me, this is information about what I was requested, seeking legal advice, and it reflects my work on that request.
Well, the way it reads, and I won't read the language, but the way it reads is it's talking about something that is open to the charter, which is available to the public. So either we have a problem with the way this is written, or there's something that's not being said. So
Well, if I could just, Mr. Mayor Pro.
Yes, go ahead.
If I may. Just because I get asked about something that's a public document doesn't mean that that's not attorney-client privileged. It's a communication between my client and me as an attorney seeking for, in my example, it would be an interpretation or a legal position regarding a public document or how it might affect a particular circumstance. Just because my entry refers to something that is a public document doesn't mean that the request to me and my legal advice back to the city is not attorney-client privilege.
okay, then maybe we need to work on the language.
Excuse me, can I ask just?
Wait a minute.
I don't mind
I've
if you-
already got Mary waiting, and so if I allow you to
No, you're
break
right,
in.
you're right.
So
It's on the
let's
same, it's on.
get singly focused here, Joe, and get her
So
done.
maybe we need to work on the language then, what's in these invoices. And if it's clearly confidential, which I still don't understand why this would be confidential. I mean, I think I know what you're talking about, which I still think should be open to the public, but regardless, that's my personal opinion. I would, maybe we can revise it so you have some sort of a better way of noting it. So it's not, yeah, go ahead.
I don't mean to interrupt. So if I'd like, based on your comments, Councilman Rizzi, I'd like some input from council about whether you, as a council, want my legal bills as part of the website or part of the packet on a regular basis.
I want as much transparency as possible. I want as much information because I am kind of tired of closed session meetings and coming out of closed session and, it's 11 o'clock and nobody's in the audience. I want to have as much transparency as possible.
Understood, and I want to give you what you want. It's just when I bill, these have not been made public record and posted in a public way. They are public records and somebody could obtain copies of them, but they would be subject to a Freedom of Information request. I would have an opportunity to redact any attorney-client privilege information, and then they would be disclosed. And that's really what, as a timing matter, that's what will happen here. I will take this invoice, I've been through it, I've identified what needs to be redacted. It will be redacted and provided to the city manager for inclusion on the website. Going forward, if the council wishes to have my bills public, I would essentially try to do that redaction possibly when I'm creating the bill, or I would do it as after the fact, and probably have to do both anyway. But I certainly don't want to reveal attorney-client privilege information through the bill if it's in fact going to be on the website in public.
See, my concern is that I think we're just getting too loose with the blank check and just getting too loose with this attorney-client privilege, which, again, I think is not always the case. I think we need to be a little more open and honest here. But yeah, those are great feedback. We can mark it up, whatever. So, but there's, I want to go through these, and then maybe you can tell me.
Let's go.
All right. So the next line about telephone conferences, is this something I can ask about?
Yes.
Okay. Multiple telephone conferences with correspondence to and receipt review of correspondence from city manager regarding election and swearing in issues. So I was curious, what was the issue regarding swearing someone in? It's pretty standard to swear someone in, so I don't understand why we need almost an hour conversation about swearing somebody in.
Well, it relates to the entry above it as well, but it was also, I think I recall that it included making sure that we have the oath of office ready, how the process was going to work, whether the sitting council was going to be there, how does that work, and just practical matters of how that process would work.
I would think that our city manager would be able to know how to swear somebody in. That's our city clerk.
That's the city clerk's job.
Yes, well, you would know, but you spoke to Tim, is my point. You would know how to figure that out with almost spending an hour to swear somebody in. But that's, again, my personal opinion. Okay, next is, we have a line, page 6, 0.2 hours regarding food trucks. And I just wanted to note that we have, let's see, 5, 5.5, 5.7, 5.8 hours regarding food trucks, regarding either attending meetings, preparation of materials for the planning commission, correspondence to planning consultant. So we spent a lot of time on this, is my point, and we talked about the food trucks a couple months ago because of an unfortunate instance. But my question is, where are we at right now on the status since we spent so much time on this?
I have a draft that is, I need to do another revision. The approach that I'm taking is to have a vendor side license.
Okay.
And the difficulty I've been having is to have essentially the property owner or sponsor license, and trying to double that up and I have to figure out whether that gets put in with the vendor. I think it's going to be a separate licensing process, so that essentially the private owners in certain zoning districts, if they would like to have a food truck, they would essentially get a separate license. And then a food vendor could also locate and get its own license. The vendor has to have a license regardless of whether it's on public or private.
Okay.
And the vendor then could locate on public property, and if they want to be on private, then that private owner has to have a sponsor license.
So we're moving forward.
I was hoping to have it to Planning Commission for this week, but I was not able to get
Okay.
the ordinance done, so it'll be in February.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Now I see some correspondence regarding a default issue. Is that something I can ask about?
Can you direct me to where you're looking at?
11.6, page 7.
That's the charter provision, that's the same election issue from
Okay.
11.4.
So we have a default issue.
There's a provision in the charter that talks about being in default.
Okay,
And I was asked about the implication of that, and I provided legal advice, and that's what the telephone conversation pertained to, that's what the other entry pertained to.
okay.
I don't want to get any further into the details of the advice provided.
Okay, that's fair enough. What about, let's say, 11.11, about a millage? We talk about that. Curious which millage we were looking at.
That was in anticipation of the road paving issues that would be coming up. There was discussion about the road asset management plan, essentially, and the concept that was out there that was premised on a millage. I was starting to look forward and trying to do my research so that I understand the millage process and what I would be asked to do in that process.
Just as a side note, I thought the governor just passed something that makes it difficult about soliciting millages from.
Correct.
Okay, now is that going to have an implication on our city as well?
Actually,
Any millage.
it doesn't affect your ability to go for a millage, but it prohibits for, I believe it's either 60 or 90 days prior to the, 60 days prior to the millage election, the spending of any public
City money.
monies to do any education on the millage.
I think that's great. For the record,
Can we focus on the
yeah.
invoices?
Okay. Yeah, people should be able to make up their own minds without people telling them what to do. All right, telephone conference regarding various matters. So that was 0.4 hours. Just my comment was, I thought I heard a comment by another council member, maybe it was the last meeting, where they said they wanted their name listed. Now, certainly, if people don't want their name listed, that's their prerogative. Me personally, if we speak on the phone, I would like my name listed. And I would encourage the other council members to do the same, but that's their prerogative, of course.
I will be making that a practice to make sure that if I talk with any council person or any staff member, and generally, I will make sure that it's clear who I spoke with.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much on that one. That's great. There was another one on page 8, just at the bottom, 0.4 hours regarding the food trucks. So what did I say before? 5.8, 6.2 hours. So we can add that to the total. I'm sure somebody will fact check me on that. That's okay. Next, page 9, 11/19/2015. There was a lot of there's a lot of billings for South Lyon Square sign. So I was wondering what the issue is specifically regarding the sign. If you look at page 9, there's one on there, second to the bottom, and then page 10, 0.2 hours and 0.3 hours. And then, so yes, there was some time spent on this sign, but I don't recall being informed of what that was.
Southline, the owner of Southline Square it relates to a variance that's needed for their advertising sign.
So is this something that's going to go to the planning commission eventually, or?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, it would go to the ZBA as a variance.
Okay. Next, 11/23/2015, there was some building ordinance that you were looking at.
I'm sorry, which date?
11/23/2015, 1.7 hours. Building ordinance, dangerous building ordinance.
That was my research to prepare the dangerous building ordinance.
So does that have anything to do with the, what we're talking about with blight and?
Yes.
Okay,
I
so,
looked at the Brighton ordinance, I looked at other communities, looked at the statute. The
Okay.
Brighton ordinance is different from the statute. And I wanted to understand why and where, and look at other communities and how they've approached the issue.
okay, that's before we made a decision today, then not go with Paul Burns, okay. Next, 11/24, 1.3 hours regarding road commission meeting. And I was just curious what role an attorney had, because my impression was that, Lynn, you were going to meet with them. I would think that you would be able to handle this yourself without having an attorney present, accompany you to a meeting with Oakland County.
I did meet with them. Tim and I discussed with them the right-of-way issues that had been brought up, not just the advocacy, but the actual right-of-way issues, and asked for clarification from the road commission on their rules and regulations in terms of right-of-way. And I wanted Tim to be fully aware of what the road commission was saying on that as we moved forward with trying to work with our residents to help Dr. Kaplan with the road commission, help any other residents that have issues with the road commission. We also discussed at that time a particular instance where we have a property or a business whose sign currently exists on road commission property without their authority, and that was discovered when this business came to the city seeking a application for a new sign permit. And so we needed the city attorney to sit in on that for clarification on how we go forward with handling a business whose sign is on property he doesn't own, and whether or not they can make any changes to it, and how we process that through the road commission.
Okay. My last question, well, I guess it's more of a comment, is 11/12/2015, attend planning commission meeting. I made this, argument when I voted against the last increase. One of the arguments was that you were saying for your pay increase was that you were spending your dollars per hour was too low based on the hours you were spending and your monthly retainer rate. So I suggested that some of these meetings could have been removed. For example, the planning commission meeting, we have a certified planner with 30 years of experience. We have people that sit on the planning commission who own construction companies, builders. They are more than qualified to handle these city issues. So I suggested that maybe that could be removed. So just for future, my opinion is that that's not necessary for Johnson Rosati to attend that meeting. So that was it. Thank you.
All right, Mary had a comment. Thank you for your patience, Mary.
No problem. Briefly, I just wanted to put it on the record that I know you're taking a lot of heat and you're handling it gracefully. Also, you have a fiduciary duty to us. You work for the city council. We as a city council are the voice of the people. So a lot of the matters that come forward that you give us advice on, you have a fiduciary duty. And so tread carefully as you speak, because we don't want your license to be in jeopardy. And that goes for us as well when we ask questions. I'm all in favor of transparency, but I also don't want you to lose your license. So I'm not saying that we should keep things private, but we should discuss them with council first, because I mean, the fiduciary duty is between us, and then we expound it upon the public and let them know what's going on. So I think if there are matters that are private and urgent and things that are discussion between us, that's our decision to make it public. I don't know if necessarily we need to fire questions at you and have you justify every response. I mean, again, you're handling it gracefully, but again, tread carefully with our questions because that's your license.
Understood.
Thank you.
Uh,
Maggie, you had a point, and then.
Go ahead,
Mike.
go ahead, Maggie.
You got a question?
Yes, let me start. I found this an interesting entry on the agenda, and I'm going to start actually with Lynn. Lynn, are you sending out your manager's reports?
I have been collecting them. I am short on sending them out. I am short a couple of the managers for the last 4 weeks, but I will be getting them sent out this week, whether I have those full managers report from the department
Because I haven't
heads.
seen one in about 5 weeks.
Let's focus on the invoices.
No, excuse me.
No.
Point of
This
order.
is the-
Excuse
the
me, point of
agenda
order.
item is
Glenn, you
the
don't have,
invoice.
you don't have,
Point of
the
order.
Glenn, she's bringing it to,
Christ's sakes.
I
Point of order,
understand, Glenn.
The reason I'm asking about whether or not you are, I thought maybe I just wasn't getting them, is because these invoices actually are the only opportunity for me to look and see what is going on in the city. So I looked at the attorney's invoices, maybe not so much from a legal whatever, but what was going on with respect to an engagement with respect to city business. And the reason is because I have not been receiving, managers' reports weekly in order to fill in some of these gaps. So to start, to go with what Mr. Councilman Reese said, the issue that you were researching with respect to the charter, who's your client?
The city.
Who's the city? Who was your client on this issue?
It was a question that I brought to him.
Thank you. Okay, next question. Receipt regarding correspondence regarding parking at Alexander Center. What was that about?
Tim, tell me to shut up if I need to.
Can you point me to the entry you're looking
It's
at?
on November 3rd, 2015. It's regarding parking at Alexander Center.
I was advised regarding an inquiry from the owner of the Alexander Center regarding parking and occupancy of the remainder of the building.
Okay, and the next entry on November 4th, you attended a meeting with the city manager regarding DDA member appointment. Why were you at a DDA member appointment?
It was to discuss whether the city bylaws for the DDA conformed with the state bylaws, which allow for you to appoint members to the DDA that are business or property owners outside of the DDA district, as long as the majority of the members of the DDA are residents, business, or property owners within that.
Okay, on November 20th, the entry by you attended a meeting with the city manager regarding Martindale Estates, Lexington Place, Grand Trunk, and scrapbooking.
The scrapbooking had to do with a home business or home occupation permit. The rest all had to do with continuing to update and work on utility dedications for multiple different subdivisions.
Okay. Here is one of the things that I sort of noticed, and I just want you to sort of take this as constructive criticism. I'm glad that the question was asked about the County Road Commission, because I had that down as a highlighted item. And I think what it is that I'm looking at two highly paid professionals, probably the two highest paid individuals in the city. City Attorney Johnson Rosati and the city manager. And I see the two of you going to meetings together. And I am trying to ascertain what your level of decision-making is independent of a third-party vendor. That's what I'm trying to ascertain. I'm trying to determine what your ability is, what your critical skill analysis is with respect to your ability to go to a meeting, take an intake like you did at the road commission, understand what you're talking about, right of road, right of ways, be able to communicate that to somebody, do a little bit of research, understand what the issue or problem is, and come up with a recommendation. Because I'm looking at this, unfortunately, and red flags are going up for me when I read these attorney invoices. Because now I'm saying, what is the city manager capable of doing on her own? And why are we double dipping with the city attorney when we have a city manager to manage these meetings? For example, one of the meetings was fireworks. I saw your memo on it. And I'm saying to myself, why does the city attorney need to be at that meeting when it appeared that it was an intake meeting? You were meeting Michigan Fireworks. You were talking about permits and stuff going on in McCanny Park. And I think there's a possibility that there is an over-reliance on Johnson Rosati for what, for me, appears to be basic managerial tasks.
I have to work tomorrow.
It's going to a meeting, running a meeting.
I,
Just because something has a legal issue doesn't mean you pull in the city attorney. So all I'm saying is that those were the red flags that came up for me. The reason I'm scrutinizing the invoices is because I haven't seen a manager's report in 5 weeks. So I had no other option but to review the invoices in order to ascertain what has been going on in the city. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Do I have anybody else on hold here? Glenn,
Yes,
you are. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought Mike wanted to.
Oh, I'm just going to say, I just hope that if this council, who is in support of hiring this attorney from Brighton, is going to fly spec Johnson Rosati like they're fly specking him right now, I hope, and I'm led to believe that those bills from this attorney from City of Brighton, if that person is selected, is going to be fly spec just as much as this, number one. Number two, I hate to comment on the length of this meeting, but some of us on this panel have full-time jobs. It is now 11:20, and we still have 4 items, I think, left on this agenda. I understand that, and I'm probably going to hear it, people want to speak, and, the people have a right to, listen to us and all that stuff. That's fine and dandy, but really? It's 11:20, and we still have 4 items left to go on this agenda? I mean, I'm sorry, but this is getting a little ridiculous on the length.
Okay, thank you.
I
Quickly.
actually don't have any misgivings at all with the length of a meeting, except for the fact that most of the waste of time here was theater. It wasn't actually trying to dispel information or disperse information.
All right,
and that's really problematic. So,
Thank you.
now, secondly, with all the questions that have been asked, there's sort of an illusion being painted here that we're paying so much for all this stuff that they don't find to be worthy of our engaging the city attorney on. The reality of the fact is that even this month, which is a little bit higher than what the previous 4 months had been, is still 9 hours under retainer. So we're paying that cost irrespective of whether or not you think this was important. They deemed it important enough to get him engaged, and it's within the retainer. So there's no extra charge as a product of that. The rationale for being involved in ZBA and planning meetings is to make sure that the city is protected. If someone misspeaks, overextends themselves, misrepresents the city's position, there's an ability to protect the city by correcting whatever action or speech might have been made. And, Maggie, I can understand. I would love to see the city manager reports on a regular basis too, but I think there's an avenue that you might be able to capitalize on. Grab a phone and call her. Come to City Hall and speak with her. She's very receptive to conversations, and then you have all the stuff that you're looking for without having to go through the invoices to determine what's going on in the interest of the city. That's all I had.
Okay, is there anyone I've missed on this topic? All right, let's move on. We have donations to accept. Number one is a donation to the police and fire departments from Ken and Barb Turner. Chief, I think you wrote, Police Chief, you wrote a letter on that.
Yes, as they've done several years past, the Turners have graciously donated a $100 check to, separate checks to the police and fire departments for a total of $200, and we're simply asking council to acknowledge and accept those donations.
Can I get a motion on that?
I move that we accept the donations.
I second.
Motion by Kramer and seconded by Dudakis to accept the $200 donations from the Tylers and thank them for their generosity. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No? No?
With
Yes?
thanks.
I'm sorry. The motion carries. We have donations that were received from various people who, vendors who work with and for the city, which funds our Christmas party, our appreciation party for our employees and volunteers who work for the city. They are from the Community Image Builders, $200, Johnson Rossetti, $500, Hubble Roth and Clark, $400, Michigan Seamless Tube, $500, Safe Built, $200, and Plant Moran, our accountants, $100. We need a motion to accept those donations.
I make that motion.
I'll second.
With thanks.
Yeah, motion by Kibble and supported by Kramer. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That motion passes. Now we come to the discussion of blight ordinances and unsafe structures. Please be brief, everyone. It's getting late. Go ahead. Who'd like to start?
I have no comment on this issue.
All right, no discussion on that. We'll close that discussion. Discussion on downtown. Is there anyone who wishes to discuss downtown tonight?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzi.
Yes, my question is regarding 390 Lafayette. I know the contract calls for grass seed.
Actually, the contract did not call for grass seed. The Department of Public Works is going to seed it in the spring when they reseed the parks.
All right, I stand corrected. I thought it said that you sent out a memo before, but I stand corrected. So it's, right now, it is as it is. There's no, okay. So,
They discussed it with us prior to the contract, and we agreed that the DPW could do it and save the
Okay.
city some money, and I thought that was very strong on Lynn's part.
no, it's good. I just don't remember seeing that memo.
Okay.
All right. So my question is, and this is what the public has been asking me, is what are we going to do with that property? Now, I know we have the master plan, which hopefully we'll have approved soon. So that's a step, but I was hoping tonight, I mean, I know it's getting late, but I think this is an important discussion to at least put on the radar that we need to start thinking about what do we want there, basically. And, maybe that's something for the vision session, but it's something we need to talk about eventually. So at this time, I don't have any other comments about it other than this is something I will continue to bring up, and eventually we need to have some sort of vision for that land because the public needs to know. Thank you.
What my plan is once the master plan is adopted, to hold a community open house with the council, with everyone in the community invited, with our planner here so that he can hear, so that everyone has an opportunity to give an input on what they feel is the best use of that property. Once that is done, the council will give me direction on how to put together the request for proposals to developers for what we want there. And we'll move forward with it at that time.
So what month would you be targeting for?
The master plan goes for public hearing at the Planning Commission in February. I believe it'll be approved by the council in March. So we would be looking at April, May at the latest, depending upon how the budgeting process goes, to hold the community forum.
Okay, perfect, thank you. That was all I had.
Anyone else on downtown?
Yes.
Go ahead, Maggie.
I'm gonna make this quick. I have a job, so I work Monday through Friday, so I can't get in to see you. So I brought something to the meeting tonight for you to take a quick look at. First of all, I think that the DDA does need a strategic plan. And if you go on the website, you can look and see probably one of the best strategic plans for the DDA I found was Wyandotte. Allen Park, their strategic plan for their DDA is right here. What I found interesting about Allen Park is that they started their process in March of 2014, and by July 23rd of 2014, Allen Park had a strategic plan for their DDA. So other communities are able to move forward and take care of their DDA. I don't know what the backlog is here in South Lyon, but there it is. Other communities, I looked at Montrose, Colorado. They have a good strategic plan, and I think that the DDA, as you get the individuals on that DDA that have got talent, you're going to need a strategic plan. You can't survive without it. I also had an opportunity to meet with DDA members from Rochester Hills, and they actually came down here to South Lyon during Christmas. I'm just going to pass along a couple of things that they had, and I think if I had not experienced it, I wouldn't have believed it. Downtown Rochester Hills at Christmas is absolutely phenomenal. When my husband and I were there with friends prior to Christmas, the Monday before Christmas, none of the stores were open at night. The only thing open were the bars and the restaurants, and the streets were packed. So what were the people doing? And as the individuals in the DDA spoke with me, they said, you're missing a component in your DDA if you don't understand how important dressing up your downtown, the glitz and the glam is. If you don't have glitz and glam of your downtown and have it really, really dressed up for your number one holiday is Christmas, then you're missing phenomenal opportunities for individuals to come to your downtown. You have Frankenmuth, the number one Christmas store in the world that has interior decorators that would come down here, that do exterior lighting that could help you. And these are the kinds of things, if you want to pick up that downtown, you got to start thinking the way these other towns are thinking. Additionally, I'd like the city council to think about economic incentives. I'm just going to give you an example. Given that I'm a transparent individual, I mentioned at the last meeting my disappointment with True Value, and I understand that members of the city have contacted True Value regarding their building. So I went over and I also spoke with Sean and asked him, I said, I'm just going to throw an idea out. I have absolutely no authority from city council or anybody, but I'm going to brainstorm with you because that is an area that's an approach, and I received probably 15 emails from people in the community that said, you're absolutely right. You've got to take care of these approaches coming into the downtown. You're absolutely right. So I go in and I spoke to Sean, and again spoke with him today, and here's the economic incentive I'd like to propose. Clearly it's up to city council, but I think this is the kind of thinking outside the box. If you're going to fix the downtown, I think this is how you're going to have to think for a while. True Value would be willing to put up that structure that was approved by the Planning Commission, and what I offered was a tax incentive. Why not give them a tax abatement for 5 years? They put up the structure in 2016. Once it's up, it's been approved, certified, has a certificate of occupancy, give them a 5-year tax abatement to help pay for the loan back that they'll have to take to put out the structure. And I think I would begin thinking about providing tax abatements for short periods of time to those landlords that are willing to improve their property. Take a guess. All these other communities are doing it. They're all doing it. That's why Wyandotte looks the way it does. That's why Riverview looks the way it does. That's why Rochester looks the way it does. Because these communities made an investment. They said, I will forego my tax money for a certain period of time, but you, business owner, you got to ante up and you've got to help us out. Additionally, Rochester brought up some really good points. They went into some of the businesses and said, how do you expect people that are living on 10 Mile, that are building $500,000, $600,000 homes, walk into a business that hasn't been redecorated, anything for almost 25 years? They walked into businesses and there was inventory laying on the floor. Paint hadn't been put on the walls in 15 years. Outdated furniture, outdated shelving, outdated everything. And you want people from $600,000 homes to come into your city when the interior of some of your businesses are so outdated? So the DDA has to get out there and has to say, you need to modernize some of those businesses in that downtown. Because if you don't, the people just aren't gonna come. Last, have been talking to a business that's out on the West Coast. It would be a phenomenal business if they came into the downtown. I'm a person that believes in moving ahead and trying to solve problems. And they are retail. They have a business in Troy, and they have one down in Ann Arbor. It would be a coup if we could get them in our downtown. Unfortunately, we don't have the quite physical arrangements yet in the downtown area. The leasing is still a little difficult. However, I think I have made them a little curious about this city of South Lyon, that I believe their sales manager will be making a visit to South Lyon at some point. I've already taken one business owner to this place. I'm taking another business owner on Thursday. We're going to take a look at this. And if we have to get a petition out there on the internet or Facebook to encourage this company to come to South Lyon, I think it would be absolutely wonderful. I'm not going to sit back and wait. Time is running out, and we have to move forward with the DDA. Those are my comments tonight. Thank you.
Anything further on the downtown?
Out of curiosity, what business is it, or are you not allowed to say?
No.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why. Because I don't want Lyon Township jumping on it.
Okay, that's fair. Also, really quick too, I'm sorry. Does the DDA have a current strategic plan, or is that something that?
They do not.
Okay.
All right.
I'll get it from you after the meeting.
Let's move along to the manager's reports and council comments, and then we'll deal with the closed session. So manager's report, please.
Just a few things. We've already discussed the memo that I provided to you about getting additional administrative help. I was going to just mention that I would be bringing that up at the next meeting. There was a comment made earlier about needing to liaise better with Lyon Township on the Safe Routes to School. We met just last week on the Safe Routes to School grant. I work quite well with Lyon Township. I meet with Lanny. I meet with their engineers, their planning consultants on a regular basis. I sit on the boards with representatives from Lyon Township. I think we have a very good working relationship, and I'm not sure that an additional liaison needs to be appointed for that. We do have the budget coming up that needs to be approved in April. What I'd like to do this year is break our budget work sessions down into 2 budget work sessions so that they're shorter. We will handle the administration, general fund budget at 1 work session and all the other funds at another work session. If that's okay with the council, I will start putting together with the department heads the budgets, get that information out to you, and we can set those dates at the next meeting. Want to remind everybody that next Monday is the Martin Luther King holiday. City Hall will be closed for that day. And then, as an information, since Mayor Gallus is not here, the City of South Lyon is hosting the South Oakland County Mayor's Association dinner on February 10th here in South Lyon. That is something that generally most of the council members from other communities, when they are sponsoring it, do try to attend. So if you are available, please block that off on your calendar. We are making the final arrangements of location, and the mayor and I are working to identify a speaker for that evening.
What was that date? I'm sorry.
February 10th. It is the second Wednesday. It's also Ash Wednesday. And that's all I have this evening.
What action day? What was that?
February 10th, Ash Wednesday.
What day?
Ash Wednesday.
Ash Wednesday, thank you. My hearing usually shuts out about 11:50.
All right, let's do council comments. Let's start with Maggie. She hasn't said anything much tonight.
I had been retained about 2 months ago by a business that wanted to relocate into the downtown area. She was very well versed on the issues in terms of what she considered a sad state. She was willing to take a gamble and take a risk. She has a fabulous boutique line. She would have been extremely high-end, and the location she was looking at is where Grand Trunk used to be. Would have been a great location. She had been in that location prior. She had been in there the summer before the change had been made, so she had an opportunity to view the space. She's very savvy. She's very, very bright. And there's a reason that she is a success, and she knows how to evaluate risk. And her moving into this town was contingent on the vote tonight to getting the Paul Burns Law Firm in the city. She's familiar with their reputation. She has seen what they've done in downtown Brighton. So we have lost a business. Next, I would like to congratulate the DDA over in Lyon Township on their purchase of property for their downtown parking. The story that the newspaper did not report, did not tell, is why are they dealing with parking? Obviously, Lyon Township is expecting a retail need, and there will be expansion over there for the necessity of parking. So what that tells me is that the competition is closing in and closing in fast. And it's unfortunate that the gains and the steps that could have been taken tonight to move forward were not. And the DDA over in Lyon Township, New Hudson, has been in shorter existence than the DDA here in South Lyon. So they are making great progress. They are doing phenomenal things. And obviously, they've got plans for that parking space. Next, I would like to congratulate and thank Providence Park for the improvements that they're doing on their property downtown South Lyon. I've seen them out there with their molding, and they're doing a great job, and I want to thank them for being a good steward of the downtown. Last, on January 22nd, myself, Madison Crest Business Law, along with Brenda Smith, CPA, Brenda's Tax Express, we will be hosting a chamber breakfast over at our joint offices at 417 South Lafayette. Many people have expressed an interest in coming. Brenda received a lot of emails. I just spoke with her office today. And I think we're going to uptick the breakfast and maybe make it something a little bit more than just donuts and bagels. So that is January 22nd, 8:30 Chamber Breakfast, and that will be a joint breakfast by Madison Crest Business Law and Brenda Smith, CPA. Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, for your patience and your courtesy tonight.
Mike?
I wasn't going to make a comment, but I feel the need to make a comment. One of the biggest issues I find sitting on this council is that we as a council are so busy criticizing the employees working in the city that the city employees are too busy worrying about their jobs rather than worrying about actually doing stuff for the city. So I hope in the strategic planning session that we've approved, we spend some quality time on discussing maybe laying off some of our city employees so they can actually do their job and that we can move forward rather than just sitting where we're at. That's all I have.
Thank you. Glenn?
I think I'm good. Thanks.
Good. Mary?
Have a good night. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Joe?
Yes, I have some constructive criticism. First is regarding the meeting that was canceled on December 28th. I was kind of disappointed by that outcome. I think of it as if it was the private sector, which obviously this is not, I'm not unrealistic, but if it was some important board meeting for some company, you would bet they would bear a little bit Michigan ice. In fact, instead of going to city council, I went to Powerhouse Gym. There was a ton of people there. After I got done working out, I came back, drove by City Hall 9:30. DPW did an excellent job salting and plowing the roads, so I commend them. So I was kind of disappointed about that because this meeting could have been cut in half tonight if we would have had that meeting. Other constructive criticism is just regarding, speaking of time, I have a full-time job as well. I have to be up tomorrow at, whenever my kids wake me up, usually that's around 6 a.m. So I'll be there. I'll have my coffee, ready to go, functioning fully for work, no issues. But, excuse me, regarding time, we did receive a memo regarding limiting the time for public comment. And I just wanted to state that I think that's a very bad and slippery slope to go down. I have no issues being here till midnight. We have a lot of important issues to discuss. So if somebody wants to sit there and Carl, you shouldn't have to apologize and ask for 6 minutes. You want 6 minutes? To me, that's fine. We should not be limiting public comment for anybody. If they want to speak for 10 minutes, I'm here to listen. And that's what we're here to do, and that's why we're elected. So I just wanted to put that out there right now, that I'm fully against limiting any form of free speech in a public meeting. Next, so that's the constructive. Now for the positive, is regarding the ice arena. Bob, I heard some rumblings that you're actually may put that in the budget, and I'm 100% for getting a new tarp. I think that's good. And curious if you can expand upon that, about kind of what the timeline is, what kind of tarp we're going to get, and how we can kind of get that done.
Me right now?
Yeah, yes, please. Is the hearing, sorry if the hearing is shot.
Well, the place it's gone in the past, I don't think is where the ice rink should be. It's too difficult to get at for residents. They gotta park long way away, walk in. I feel the best thing the city can do is let my department, the DPW, tackle and repave the parking lot to the west of the water plant. We could do that this summer. It's a big ticket item, but it's still half of what it would cost if we went outside and did that. We could repave that with 2 drains. That parking lot could be used for inline skating throughout the summer. The first 1/3 would be parking. The back 2/3 could be inline skating, basketball in the summer, but in the winter, we could flood that with a tarp.
Yeah.
It would have curb lines. It would create a very nice controlled area with parking closed for families to park literally 15 feet away from where they could ice skate.
Okay.
That's my goal, but I can't make that call without Lynn and council approval.
Right, now-
So that's where we're gonna go with this, but it isn't gonna happen this winter, Joe.
Okay. So in immediate, no, and I think that's a long-term goal, and maybe, I don't know what, the Lions money, who knows, maybe that could go to, I don't know how much it would cost. My biggest concern is if, it sounds like a good vision. Once we start getting HRC, the dollars and cents are gonna start adding up.
Do this in-house.
Oh, even better. That's even better. But in the interim, it would be nice to get that tarp purchased and get the temp, as we've had it in the past, for next year for the skating. I don't know if it's too late this year. Maybe, I don't know. That's a question.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, probably. Okay. Well, at least now that we're looking at it, I'd like to keep that on the horizon and keeping it fresh in our
I was
minds.
gonna propose this in the new budget year, and we could do this summer, and we could be up and running by late summer with inline skating, basketball, and an ice rink next winter.
Yeah. No, that would be nice to see that type of proposal, in my opinion. But thank you for the update. Next, I would like to talk about what I think could be an improvement for the city. And this is not constructive, it's just a suggestion. But if you look at South Lyon Fire Department, South Lyon Police, excellent job with Facebook, creating a page. You guys have, and I'm looking at both of you, between the two of you have 5,000 people, followers, who are and they rely heavily on this information, and they check it out and they share it. And in fact, that's how it led to the arrest of the robber, as I recall. And it's just valuable information. And you didn't come to council for approval. You took it upon yourselves. That's the kind of leadership we need. And I commend you for that. I think that was great. Now, you look at Lyon Township. They have a Lyon Township Facebook page. I think it's time we take the next step and we create a City of South Lyon Facebook page. We could talk about when water bills are due, upcoming events. I know there's a Downtown South Lyon Facebook page, but there's stuff that we could put specific to our city. Okay, snow emergency. That's not always posted. It's snow emergency and you drive by the city sign, digital sign, it's snowing, and it's a snow, you can't see the sign. So stuff like that, I'd really like to see sometime, I don't know, let's say in the next 6 months, City of South Lyon Facebook. And I know it doesn't take that long. And, who knows, if we're going to hire, I don't know if I trust an intern to run the Facebook page, but that could free up some responsibility for one of the current clerical person, and they could take it over. I don't want you to do it, Lynn, because we don't want to take you away from writing grants and stuff like that. So that's one of my suggestions and goals I would like to see. Next, and my last comment is regarding Lyon Township. I had a very productive meeting with one of the Lyon Township trustees, Sean O'Neill, I took it upon myself to say, hey, our communities are very close. We have a lot of mutual friends, but embarrassingly enough, we never met in person up until recently. So I contacted them. I said, hey, we have a lot of mutual benefit, our communities. Let's sit down and just have a cup of coffee. We sat down, and one of the ideas that we came up with, and I wanted to bring to this council, and I'm going to ask input from each and every one of you, and he already went to Lyon Township, and they agreed, was having at least once a year, and it could just be once a year, some sort of an open meeting for the whole public to come to, where we sit down as both of our boards, and we come up with some goals that we want to obtain. I already mentioned this to Mayor Galis, and he said he's all for meeting with other communities. So he said he's okay with it. But what Sean and I talked about was, look, the safe routes to school, you're having this discussions at a higher level between you and Lanny, but having the trustees and the council members would really help having that trust. But what we talked about was, if we have, let's say, 10 items on a list, and let's say we only have 10 goals. Okay, let's work on sidewalks, just for example. That's one of the things actually we talked about was, why is it you go down Pontiac Trail? And I know the reason why, but it's not a good answer, is there's hit and miss sidewalks as you go down Pontiac Trail. So maybe that's something we could talk about. This is just something I'm throwing out. And how can we work together to get the whole Pontiac Trail paved? So maybe if we have 10 items and we nail one, hey, that's going to be worth 2 hours sitting down as a meeting. So I wanted to ask council if you would be on board with having a joint meeting with Lyon Township.
Absolutely.
So far I heard 2 yeses.
Yeah, we've done it before.
Okay. Not in the recent 4 years I've been here, but, so that's 3, Harvey, Mike?
Yeah, it's fine. I mean,
Okay.
we've tried to do
Excellent.
it.
So I'll talk to Sean again and see maybe throw it by you, Lynn, and we can try to set up some dates. Now, I know we have a lot of meetings come up, the vision session and the budget, so I'll try to be conscious. We'll try to be conscious of everybody's schedule, but we'll make it convenient for everybody. So
Maybe John and Yolandi should get together.
that's true. Yeah, they could set the time.
But-
And- yeah. Okay, that was it. Thank you.
All right, I'll keep my comments brief. I want to reinforce the comments that Mike made. I want to also mention that these discussion items, just open-ended discussion items on the agenda, are largely a waste of time. Please, before you put something on the agenda, have some reason for it and some plan. This is ridiculous that we're here at 10 minutes to 12 and we still haven't finished our meeting. To our employees who have to get up in the morning and go to work, I apologize, but it is what it is. That's my comment for tonight. Closed session. Per Section 8, Parents H of the Open Meetings Act, for the discussion of information exempt from Section 13, Parents 1, Parents G of the Freedom of Information Act, which exempts from public disclosure information subject to the attorney-client privilege. We need a motion to go into closed session. We need a roll call vote, and we need a majority of,
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, 8H requires a two-thirds roll call.
two-thirds?
So two-thirds of the sitting members, so it would be two-thirds of 7 members, which would be a 5-member vote.
5 members. All right. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Kibble, seconded by Kramer. Would you call the roll, please?
Sure. Kibble,
Yes.
Dendakis,
Yes.
Rizzi,
No.
Waddell,
Yes?
Kramer,
Yes,
Kurzweil.
No.
we don't go.
We don't go.
I move we adjourn.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes.
in light of that vote just now, because of a timing issue on the issue that I wanted to talk with council in closed session, I'm going to try and see if I can explain this issue in a way, and I'd like direction from council if possible. The issue involves the granting of poverty exemptions by the December Board of Review that are contrary to the city's adopted policy that sets the poverty limits and what requirements have to be met to get a poverty exemption. 2 of those were granted, one at 100%, one at 50%. The Oakland County Equalization Department, which is your assessor by contract, has recommended that because they do not comply with city policy, that the council consider, and we've got correspondence that we received today or yesterday, consider filing a tax appeal on those 2 poverty exemptions to protect the tax roll. In other words, they should not have been granted, according to OCE, your assessor. And the request, my office has looked at that. I had Stephanie Marita look at this issue. The recommendation is that we file tax appeals on both of those poverty exemptions so that we can protect the city's tax roll.
Well, the result of the closed session would have been a recommendation by this council in open meeting, which we are now, to proceed with the recommendations of the city attorney. And your attorney and your recommendation is to appeal those 2 exemptions to the tax tribunal. Is that correct?
Yes.
And how does council feel about doing those appeals?
Absolutely. This was information that was explained that they were misbehaving during the Board of Review, and they went forward and did it anyway. So.
Well, the issue was documentation, wasn't it? In support of their reduction. I mean, wasn't there an issue about what was provided as opposed to what's actually being reported?
It's unclear whether this is an issue of whether there's something intentional or if it's a lack of education. But nonetheless, the decision to grant the poverty exemption does not comply with the city's own policy on granting those exemptions.
Well, the review of that then would be with the tax tribunal?
Yes.
Well, if there's some question to it, it makes sense to me that we have it reviewed.
But do we have to file a formal appeal?
There's more I'd like to go into, but because you have not gone into closed session, there are legal impacts.
I'm trying to get you some guidance here.
Yeah, I understand. I can't speak as freely as I'd like to.
But the secondary issue can be addressed after the tribunal makes a judgment.
Not really.
Because we've got another Board of Review prior?
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyone else have an opinion on that?
I think I would take the first applicant that's named in there, in your memo, and take a look at that. And take it case by case. It appears from your letter that there was some deliberate and intentional conduct in the sense that certain documents failed to state particular issues, particularly with respect to current assets not being disclosed, and a failure to state all employment and income for this particular candidate. I don't have a problem taking appeal from that. And I think you have to look at the conduct of the applicant versus the Board of Review, because I think Board of Review is not in question tonight. I think that's probably an issue you bring up at a different point. To me, you have volunteers. This was an educational issue. I don't think they were properly trained. It happens on all commissions. But when, point of order, but when an applicant comes before the Board of Review and deliberately misstates income and/or assets, deliberately states it, and makes those statements under oath, I have serious issues. That one, without a doubt, I would appeal. The second candidate that is mentioned in here, you don't say that that individual deliberately misled the Board of Review. I don't care about Board of Review right now. I just care about the conduct of the individual. And on the second one, all it says is it does not appear the Board of Review applied an appropriate test. Why is that the applicant's fault? I don't care whether he sits on the Board of Review or not. That tells me he didn't have the training. That's a training issue. So I would separate them out. One, I think, is deliberate conduct. The other one, you know what? City, get your people trained.
But
Well,
the-
this gets into the whole issue. Looking at the applicant gets into one of the very issues that is in the center of the attorney-client privilege issue, which I'm not going to reveal because I can't. This is about the Board of Review, and its action is contrary to the city's own policy.
I would disagree with you. I
All
would,
right, that's one opinion.
yeah, that's
Well-
just my opinion.
Mayor Pro Tem, I feel I would say similar. I think the first instance is appears to me deliberate. The second instance kind of seems like the city going after a money grab. So I'd say we back off on the second one.
Well, the problem is we don't know the
Just-
full story
just
of the
so-
second one, number one. I'm sorry, Tim. And number two, the issue in the second one is it's already been granted, right? So it's
exceptions
been
have been
granted, the
granted.
exception's been granted.
You're
So
only-
now our city, the assessor, which is Oakland County,
Yes.
is questioning whether or not that exception should have been granted in the first place, correct? On the second one?
Yes, both of them.
Right. So the issue we have now is if our assessor that we've agreed to use is questioning whether or not that second exception should have been granted, then what position does that put us in as a city?
This is really this is a discussion that should happen.
I
in closed
understand, and
session.
I wish we would have gone into
Really
close, because I have a lot of questions regarding what
I can't-
happened.
I can't advise the city regarding this issue in an open setting. like
Either
this.
way, though, if there's, whether the fault of the city or the fault of the applicant, the proper review is at the tax tribunal. Why wouldn't we do that? If there's some question at all.
That is a very straightforward, plain approach to it, yes. Your assessor is recommending that these be appealed because they're contrary to city policy. These exemptions should not have been granted in both instances.
Mary, I haven't heard from you. Are you feeling on this?
I'm along the same vein as Mayor Pro Tem. I think if it needs to be reviewed, if there's any question as to the facts of misconduct on either side of the city or with the individual, and it needs to be reviewed, I mean, file suit with and take it to MTT.
Well, four of us feel you should go ahead and proceed with that.
Let me ask you,
Do we have a motion at all?
was your hope to find some way to turn it around more quickly than the tribunal?
No.
Okay.
The concern here is to protect the city's right to appeal, which has to be filed within 35 days from the decision, which was made, I thought it was December.
This matter is on the agenda, so it would be appropriate to
So this will,
have
it's my understanding this will be the last council meeting before that deadline expires.
I think it's incredibly difficult to do your job when you can't speak freely.
Right.
Yeah. All right, but it is on our agenda, so it'd be appropriate to have a motion to go ahead and give the city attorneys instruction to go ahead and proceed with the tax tribunal. Is there a motion on that?
Yeah, I make that motion.
Motion by Glenn Kebble,
I'll
second by
I'll second.
Kramer. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no.
Aye, no.
2 noes.
You didn't need a closed session.
Yeah, he did, because I had some
Yeah, I should have been.
questions.
All right,
had
we
some
need
questions.
motion
I
for
don't- I
adjournment,
don't.
so we get adjourned, we're adjourned at midnight until January 25th at 7:30.